all of the paths you've drawn have sunk to the ocean sand where no one can see. You stand, don't let the dark embrace, cower the dreams you chase under the rust and blood. Don't let yourself give up. And all these steps that we take are leading us far away. And all these years are passing each day. Since then we are far away from where we were. We did what we could. We're light years away from where we stood. The road goes on far from it all. We will start from the start. 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 We will start from the start.
There's plans, man.
I am a stream every night, and I stream some somewhat high-level Protoss gameplay with commentary, and yeah, I try to win more games than I lose, generally. And yeah, that's about it. They say they can't hear you.
Yeah, they can't hear you, Joe.
There we go. Below me is the wonderful Wardy. He runs SC2TIL, a bunch of other cool projects. I think most recently you've been working on the Wardy Open. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm good, pretty much. I've just been slated since I got in this call, but I'm feeling it. I'm ready.
And then last but certainly not least is a face some of you guys might not know, but he's a very important guy. His name is End of Line. He's the captain of Psystorm Gaming. I know you just got back from work. How are you feeling right now?
I'm a little bit tired, just came back from the brewery, but I'm feeling quite strong. Very vigorous for tonight.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our first topics, which is going to be kind of just an overview of the news, what's been going on in the past week since we've had our last show. So the first thing I want to take a look at is Copa Intercontinental. So you guys can all go grab that bracket from Team Liquid if you want to take a look at it. It's not going to be too much of an in-depth discussion just because it's a 10-person single elimination bracket, so things can be really volatile. There's not a lot of room for depth of analysis. But looking at the bracket, we've got Showtime, we've got Euthermal, we've got Hydra, we've got Haas, we've got Snoot, we've got Scarlet, and we've got Neeb. And then we'll have 3 kind of Latin American players that come from this open bracket. So looking at that bracket, does anyone jump out as you as maybe like just the super favorite of the tournament?
Who's that going to? Is that going to me?
Yeah. Take us away, Chris.
All right. I think there's a lot of good players here. I think, obviously, Neeb is going to be one of the favorites. I think Euthermal is also going to be a bit... all the ones that have been performing pretty well, right? Scarlet's been performing pretty well lately. Snoot's always performing well. Euthermal, Neeb, and Showtime. I think Hydra is actually, in my opinion, I would actually put him behind, maybe besides Scarlet. I don't know. I almost make Hydra my 6th favorite player on that list, just because I think he hasn't been playing as well lately compared to some of the foreigners, and it is going to be pretty cutthroat. But so yeah, because I think Iagaz is someone who maybe if he practices hard enough, maybe he can get some wins in here. Obviously, he hasn't had any super deep runs lately, so it'll be interesting. And Cyan and Haas can they can always do some crazy stuff. So it'll be exciting. Tons of money on the line, so it'd be a lot to play for sure.
Yeah, a whole lot of money. Wardy, any interesting things that jump out at you from this kind of weird looking bracket?
I just think the actual fact that it's like a 10-player single elimination bracket is like the dumbest thing in the world. You know what's the dumbest thing, right? They have 16 players at the event. Like, that's what the dumbest thing is. They literally have 8 Latin American players there playing for the final spot. And yes, they just don't use them for some reason. It really makes absolutely no sense to me. So they have this stupid bracket which is like ordered by WCS points, and like I don't know, like Scarlet was being kicking up at first because obviously she's like the lowest seed, whereas she actually in the qualifiers she like qualified like in the first place in her like regional qualifier, which is like harder or whatever than server qualifiers. It's like a better qualifier, So she's like, well, why do I get the lowest seed? So I don't know, using WCS points for WCS circuit event I guess makes sense, but I mean, just why have a 10-player bracket? It's just perplexes me. Especially because like 9th to 10th get less money and less points than top 8 as well. So it's really weird.
Yeah, Eric, if Psystorm had a player that was in that 9th and 10th spot and got that, how would you feel? Like as the captain, as these are kind of your homies, like if you had a player that got stuck into that weird position, would that sit right with you?
I mean, it's their tournaments, so I mean we're going to have to, obviously. But I want to echo that sentence. I agree with Wardy. It is unusual and probably not the way that I would choose to have a tournament if it was my tournament. And how does it sit with me? Obviously, it's kind of a weird thing that's not usual. And as a tournament player, if you're a tournament player, any weird thing that's out of the norm could possibly throw you off your game mentally. So it's kind of a little bit uncomfortable to be in a spot where you may be getting less points, you might be getting less prize money. Is the trip worth it for you to be there? And in terms of the players, the thing about the players right now is that everyone is capable of beating anyone there. Like you could pick someone that player could win, probably. I think Neeb will probably likely win. But if I was going to be bold, and I will be bold, I'm going to say Haas. I think it's his time to shine. And listen, he's crazy. He's absolutely insane. And one for Haas. That's my
prediction is almost as insane as like Haas's build orders. Like that is crazy.
I mean, this will be the time for him to shine, right? He's seeded already into the top 8. Like he only needs to show up with what, like 10 builds?
It's only single elimination. So
yeah, that's
his builds that much.
Yeah, so if Haas were to win a Premier Tournament this year, I'm actually going to go ahead and agree with you that it would more than likely be this one. I would still say the odds are against you, but Wardy and I made a somewhat crazy prediction recently. I made everyone else look silly, so I don't want to get too nuts about it. And speaking of that prediction, the next item on our agenda is Liquid Euthermal.
Yes.
That's a pretty big pickup. Wardy, I know that you're pretty close with Thermal, right? So I
Yeah,
figured.
man, he's my bestie, baby.
So I figure I'll let you take us off there.
I don't know, man. Like, he's pretty sick. I know he's been sick for a while. He's had really good results this year. Like, everyone's like he got top 4 at Leipzig, which was like the first event this year. And then he didn't really kind of do badly, but he didn't do like super well in like WCS Circuit Championships, so no one kind of really thought of him as a contender. And then he went to IEM, and like he could definitely win at IEM, and he did win at IEM. I don't think that was actually that crazy of a prediction. So it happened, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, YouFilm," and everyone's in the YouFilm hype train. And I kind of feel as though even if he didn't win IEM, he would have got picked up by Liquid anyways, because he was like sort of the right fit. Liquid have always been this team who have picked up players before that at their peak, and have like allowed them to develop into like great players. Like for example, Snurt, Matt, and any player on Liquid, you can literally pick any of them, and they've all been like they all got picked up as really good players, but then they became even better on Liquid. So I think YouFilm was a really good fit for them. I'm really happy for him. Obviously, I don't think there's a better team you can join in StarCraft 2 or in most games. There's not a better team you can join than Liquid, so I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up, I would definitely agree with a lot of that. And Team Liquid is definitely one of those teams, one of the most well-respected teams in the whole, in all of StarCraft, and it seems like they really support players. And I agree that, I mean, Thermal was kind of a guy who was, he was kind of on the cusp, and then he really kind of, I mean, he had some good finishes, and then he ended up obviously winning a big major like that. And then, but I think honestly, joining Team Liquid, getting some stability of having a good team and maybe some good players around him, this could definitely be, where he starts to feel more confident, less pressure, and he could take off. It's possible.
I completely agree. Team Liquid is a team that everyone loves. And the fact that you have a person like Thermal who's really kicking ass, he's really not afraid to do anything. Like, he's completely unpredictable in tournaments. He's willing to cheese in the macro. He's willing to do certain timings. His opponents have no idea what he's going to do. And he's really exciting to watch. And I think that's a really perfect fit for Team Liquid. And I'm really happy for the matchup. I kind of thought it was going to be that way. Team Liquid was kind of hinting, ooh, are you going to pick a player? Which player is it going to be? What do you think? And all of a sudden, I was like, it has to be Thermal. It's definitely the best choice.
Yeah, so I think we're all kind of on the same page there. It's definitely a cool development. Always awesome to see Liquid picking up another player. Like, when you see a premier team like that picking up players and investing in the scene, it shows they still think there's value in it. Their sponsors are getting something out of that, and I think that's just good for the ecosystem in every way, shape, and form. I don't think there's a lot to say there other than, yeah, we're all super happy for him, and it seems like a great fit. As you guys all know, I'm sure, the Pro League finale wrapped up recently. We saw some really, I would say, unexpected results. Like, I think most people favored Jin Air, but not 4-0 favored Jin Air. And they did wipe the floor with them. So I don't know if you guys were able to catch the games. If you have any thoughts, I want to talk about that briefly, and then just kind of the rumors surrounding the future of Pro League. So if anyone has a moment that they thought was really awesome, you can jump right in.
I thought it was really awesome when Zest just decided to give Jin Air the championship. I just thought, like, what a great guy. Like, he's like such a cool dude. Like, he's badass. He's like handsome. Like, everyone loves him. Like, to just straight up go, I don't think my team deserve this. Here you go, Jin Air. Like, that was badass. On a serious note, like, to actually just talk about that build, it's like everyone looks at him like, oh my god, what the hell was he doing? Why would you do that? It's one of those builds where you either look like an absolute genius or you look like a complete idiot. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you look like a complete idiot. But it's unfortunate, like, a lot of the games are pretty close. Like, even Jachi probably should have beat SOS. And I think if Jachi had beat SOS, it wouldn't have been unrealistic to see, like, a Game 7 come out of it. So,
yeah.
It was just, like, one of those days where nothing really went KT's way. And, those days happen. And obviously, they don't always happen in the finals. These players prepare, like, so much to make sure that it doesn't happen. And then sometimes it just does. So,
yeah.
I thought it was still a good series. I still enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And it's one of those things, especially in that type of format. I really feel, you can. It's hard because you can't really get the all kill, but you can't get the all kill, of course. But there is momentum that builds on, like, the first player winning and the second player winning, and I think it does add pressure. And it was kind of obviously Reddit and stuff went crazy when Zest lost, but it's just one of those builds where it either dominates or it fails horribly. There's no real in between. So. No real thoughts other than, I enjoy watching that type of StarCraft and hope to see it continue.
Eric, I want to ask you as a team captain, when you're in a position and you have like lined up, kind of like looking at a lineup, if you guys ever participate in pro league style stuff where you're not in like all kill kind of formats, how would you feel about having a guy like Jockji that's a bit of an underdog in that do or die situation? Like as a captain and a team leader, does your heart just kind of sink in that situation?
It completely sinks. It sinks right down. Because you're kind of living vicariously through the players you put out every single game. Usually you're actually live in each game, at least the games that I'm putting my players through. And you really want to see them do really well. And sometimes you have a conversation of what they're going to be doing against said player X, Y, and Z. If they see this, they'll do that. And sometimes things don't go the way the plan is there, and it just doesn't go so well, unfortunately. So it absolutely sinks.
Yeah. So we've all heard the rumors. It's kind of like an open secret that Pro League may not be around next year. They're having a bit of a sponsorship problem. It looked like it was pretty tough to get SKT1 to sponsor Pro League this year, and there's there's a real chance that there won't be Pro League, or at least it won't be the Pro League that we kind of know and love and that has existed since the very beginning of like Kespa coming into Brood War. I want to start by throwing this to you, Kenny, because you said you really love watching that kind of StarCraft. So, just without Pro League, like what do you think it'll do for someone like you that likes watching that kind of StarCraft? What are you going to turn to? Will you watch more GSL and SSL, or will you just watch less StarCraft?
I mean, I don't think it would really. I mean, it would just be bad in general for the scene to lose something like that. I don't think it would really affect me not watching or watching anymore. I mean, I'd still watch, GSL and SSL. I'd watch all three, right? I would just lose Pro League, I think. But you just kind of lose the team aspect of it, and I think that is kind of an important factor, especially when I used to play. When Flipside isn't as big a roster, and we aren't currently in any of the Dust tournaments or anything like that. But I know as a player, you really want to win for your team, and it's something that I can feel very strongly about. It's like it's one thing to lose in a tournament, or losing a tournament to someone maybe you should have been. But when you really let your team down, you feel bad about it, and you really want to practice and play well for the team. And I think, even for the players in Pro League, you want to help out your team, you want to help out your friends, and it's an important aspect to kind of keep, in such a single-player game, where you're playing 1v1s, you really want to have more camaraderie. So I think it's important to have teams for sure.
I think having teams is pretty important. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. What I don't like about Pro League is that I really feel every year they just make it worse. And like, from Pro League, no, but seriously.
I believe you and I agree with you a little bit. It's refreshing to hear someone put it like that.
But who's ever criticized Pro League? Like, literally no one. And it's gotten so much worse. Like, I don't find myself watching I watch Pro League religiously, but not anymore because it's just not as interesting. It used to be like best of 7. You used to see all these different players and different teams, and obviously like teams have had less rosters and stuff. But it doesn't inspire teams to pick up new players. If they were forced to kind of have like enough players to put on 6 each week, they'd go and pick up, even if it's just a couple of like, not crappy master players, but
GMs.
It inspired them to get rookie players again. Instead, they cut down to like best of 5, so you see same 4 players every week from every team, apart from like SKT and sometimes KT have like, they think it's a great idea to send out Lucira or something, But like, it's just so dull because it's the same players. You kind of know how it's gonna go. Sometimes you still get the great matchup, and I don't know. It's just like I just enjoyed it so much when it's best of 7. So I can understand why they got rid of it a bit, but I feel as though like best of 5's just killed so much of the hype. I mean, obviously like a best of 5 can take a long time, but at the same time, a best of 5 nowadays can take like 20 in-game minutes, and that's even going into like mid games, and it's just not very exciting. And it's not fun to watch, and I don't know. It's just less variety as well. So that sort of sucked. Obviously, I don't feel like, obviously they put like less rounds in as well, but I don't think that's as much of an issue because that even makes it easier to follow. I think just like killing the best of 7 was like something which is just, and then all of a sudden they have like best of 7 grand finals at the end of the year, so it's like all of a sudden like you'd need 6 players anyway. It's like CJ Enters got to like the grand finals, who would they actually field? Do they have 6 players? I actually don't think they do. You know, so I don't know. I just really feel as though they not only hurt the viewership there and killed a lot of the hype, at least for me, and I'm sure there's people who feel the same. And I'm sure there's people who don't care if it's best of 5 or best of 7 as well. But they also just hurt the teams because teams don't need as many players. Teams aren't forced to kind of invest in rookies, and that's how it's meant to be. Like SKT are like a tip-top team; all their players are going to be stars, and then KT are mostly going to be stars. But like teams like Samsung, etc., you think of players like Bravo and stuff like that. They don't get as much of a chance to shine, and then they only get to play in GSL, which they're not the best players, so they get knocked out of pretty early sometimes. It's just kind of silly to. It just hurts everyone. I don't think it benefits anyone other than having to like fit a certain time schedule. But with Legacy of the Void especially, I don't see why they didn't just go back to best of 7.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, before we move on, I want to ask, just because you kind of are in a position where I'm guessing you might have some influence in this. You guys participate in a lot of team leagues. If you didn't, or if you participated in team leagues with like smaller formats like best of 3, do you think you guys would have a smaller roster? Because you do have a lot of those kind of like rookie B teamers that seem like they're fielded mainly in the team leagues.
This is a great topic, and I really like this question a lot. I do agree with what you're saying. If there was a lot of best of 3s, I think that pro teams would be dramatically smaller. As you all mentioned, I think a best of 7 or greater adds a lot more hype. There's a lot more games, and as a player, it's a lot more fun to go throughout the entire gambit of maps that is at the season's like disposal, sometimes greater than the season. And it's slightly different. I really think that these team leagues, whether it's us or SD2, Brewer, etc., I think it really fosters amateur players. It gets them to play a lot more. It gets them onto a stage where they have to play for their team, and it really allows a pro team to really allow to hone new players, new talent, and get them to get into the game. Because you might have a player that might be okay now, but let's say you're splitting in team leagues, let's say he gets a lot better, and all of a sudden he might be your best player, and that might be the player you might be setting to tournaments in the future. So I think that having something greater than best of 3 is very important.
Yeah.
It's just so much more like, I think every series is more hyper and stronger. Like, I just run this World Open, right? And my viewership's been like through the roof. And the only reason I can think of is because I've done like best of 5 groups. And it's like, that's big for like an individual like tournament sort of thing. And it like helps a lot because the series are longer, sometimes a bit too long. And that's kind of a completely different issue. But it's like, just longer series just benefit everybody, I think. It's like, I know we're going to talk about team leagues later, but I'm always a fan of like the best of 7s and just allowing lots of like players to play, because I know teams who have played in like the SC2 ITL, for example, who have had players who started in the 3rd division and then they've said to me like, hey, this is the only time I ever compete. I don't go and sign up to online cups because even if I win, I just don't fancy doing it. But like a team league is like quick to play in. Sometimes it's fairly quick and fairly easy. I don't have to play every single time, and my teammates are there, and it's like a sense of I've got support for actually doing it. Like there's motivation to actually go and play instead of just like, oh well, I could play, but why should I? Like I don't fancy it today. So I just feel as though obviously this is like completely different to like pro league level. Like pro league rookies aren't like, yeah, I want to play StarCraft now all of a sudden because I get to play in pro league. They probably want to be pros anyway. But I just feel as though it's the same idea, just with different sort of results. Where in like the lower leagues, etc., it grows players. And it grows players all around, really, just obviously to different extents.
If I may also add, if you have a longer, like best of 5, best of 7, that sort of thing, as we all know, there's 1 or 2 maps per season that everyone tends to hate. And perhaps that one map favors a certain matchup. You need to think about that. Like, the question is, okay, this map will probably be played last. Who wants to play on it? Who wants to play on it? Who can actually play on this map? Who vetoes this map? Who doesn't? These are questions that the team really needs to know. And sometimes you get crazy games. Like the map Daisy comes to mind. And that's insane. It's completely unpredictable. I don't think you'll see a game played twice the same on that map, for example. And I think games like that viewers really like to watch, is that they tend to be really batshit insane.
Yeah.
I think that's also like a lot of the strategy in the team league too, because I guess you don't see it as much in Pro League because you just sort of see the players each week come out and it's already there, so it's already happened. Like in an all-kill format, like the entire thing is the strategy. Like I know some teams who take it very seriously and they're like, okay, we send out this player here, and use up this map, and then if he loses, we're going to use this map in this matchup, and it's safe to send out this guy later because he's less sniperable because that map's gone at least. It's like it adds so much depth into the match as well, which doesn't, appeal to everybody, but it gives, it helps you to build, even like as a caster, it helps you to build a story, like you can theorize why and so on. In Pro League, it's like, well, they've sent out the Protoss play on Overgrowth because guess what? Protoss have like a 60% win rate on Overgrowth because it's pretty crap.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, what a shocker. So, I don't know, like obviously that's the Pro League format.
So
later, but
I do want to jump in super quick. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't follow Pro League as closely this year as I have in years past. Normally the playoffs are all kill, right?
No. Well, so the round playoffs for a while have always been
Okay, so it's the round playoffs that are all kill, and then the Pro League is weird, man.
well, they didn't have all kill at all for ages, and they changed each year. But it's always been, I think, for the last 2 years in the grand final playoffs. In the best of threes, which is dumb as well, like the quarterfinals, semifinals are best of three, and then all of a sudden the grand finals are best of one. It's like, it just blows my mind. It doesn't make sense. But like, it's like I can see why, but at the same time, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
But like 2014, the finals that like Flash won, weren't those all kill?
No.
Okay. Just the
grand final match has always been like Pro League format.
Okay.
But in the matches leading up, when it's best of threes, they do Pro League all kill Pro League, I think. So like they alternate the format each day.
Yeah, Pro League is weird.
Yeah, it's just confusing. It's actually what I really don't get is that they use Pro League format for the entire group stage, round robin phase, whatever. And then they get to the like round one playoffs and everything's all kill. Well, where is the sense in that? Why do you suddenly change your format? And like, it just doesn't make any sense at all. I just don't understand it. It is weird. It's like a really good word. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go on to our final bit of news before we jump into our main topic of discussion, which of course is going to be team leagues. But the final bit of news, it's kind of the thing that everyone's been waiting for. It hopefully has calmed the masses, so to speak. Kespa Cup, we're finally getting a global event.
It was going to happen, guys. You just have to keep believing.
And complaining and whining, but in all seriousness, we're getting a global event. It appears to be over that $50,000 prize pool. We're having qualifiers for all the different regions. We're gonna have Koreans facing the foreigners, and they're gonna be doing it before BlizzCon, obviously. Wardy, I want to start by throwing it to you and saying, are you excited to be casting the qualifiers? Are you going to be trying to do that? I know it sounded like you had a bit more information than me about exactly what's going on.
They just got announced that I think the European and American qualifiers are run by Team Liquid. You have to like apply via Casper to be approved to cast. So hopefully we get to cast, because obviously these qualifiers are always like massive, and it makes no sense when there's like one English stream or two English stream. You know what I mean? It just makes absolutely no sense. Like DreamHack, when they told me that WCS Challenger wasn't allowed to be cast because too many English streams, and literally Base Trade showed up. So, yeah, I mean, it's great that we're getting a global event. I mean, maybe I'm just being a pessimist, but I mean, I'm someone who actually didn't really care about the global events. Like, I actually thought the WCX circuit events are way better than any global event, because we get to see the Koreans all the time in like GSL and SSL and whatever. But when was the last time before this year when you went into a tournament and literally 20 plus of the players could make a deep run and maybe even win, right? Like before then, it was like, well, who are the 8 Koreans flying out to DreamHack this time? Okay,
And Snoot.
So they're the 8 players. And Snoot. Okay. Like 2 of the Koreans, you're like, well, actually, they're not really that good. So we're looking at like 6 guys, and then you got the quarterfinals. It's like, oh my god, one foreigner's made it to the quarterfinals because he got the group with like, something people no one's ever heard of. But it is, but like now, like the WCS Championships, I look at these brackets and I'm like, well, literally anyone can make the finals. Hero Marie makes the semi-finals. Like we had Uthermal running events, Neeb's been in the finals a bunch of times. We've had Snoot in the grand finals of a bunch of stuff, like the Winter Championship, Showtime, Nurture. It's so much more exciting than like these global events. So honestly, I'm not even that hyped for Casper Cup. I'm really not. Maybe I will be when I actually see the players, but as it stands, I've been enjoying the WCS circuit, which is like a really controversial opinion, I'm sure. But yeah, anyways, I do want to very quickly point out as well that, of course, it's not going to be a WCS event without massive flaws. E.g., running the qualifiers when everyone's traveling to Mexico and back. Do you know someday you might actually get a WCS event that doesn't go wrong? Like every single time, just something goes wrong. DreamHack qualifiers. The admin's like, oh, you know what, guys? We were meant to start 20 minutes ago, but we've decided to fuck up the season again. So we'll start 40 minutes ahead. You know, every time. It's DreamHack. How, you know, sometimes I'm surprised DreamHack actually show up to, like, Valencia and put on an event. And then in the qualifiers, you'd think they don't even know they exist. It's really incredible.
It's bad.
Events, like, I mean, I don't want to be like a douchebag, but I'm pretty sure I run like $5 cups with more professional than the WCS.
Yeah. It's because in those qualifiers, like, there's one person that's not in. Like, all right, we'll redo the cup, and then they'll redo the cup, and then they'll like leave someone out, and then they have to redo it again. It goes on, yeah.
And then the seeding's like,
everyone complains about seed. They're like, "What? How is this player higher than me?"
You've got like Diamond 1 playing like a round of 8, and like Scarlet plays Neeb in round 1 as well. It's like, but eliminate you guys. It makes sense. It doesn't matter. Like, oh, okay.
I mean, oh, sorry.
Chris,
gonna jump on.
I was just gonna ask you. So, do you think having a global event so close to BlizzCon kind of kills the BlizzCon storyline?
Well, that's a question I haven't thought about. I don't think it actually does, because then, especially once we get to BlizzCon, there'll be more references to, you know, the Kesper Cup we just had. But maybe a little bit. I guess I can see how you could say something like that, because I mean, there's a lot of anticipation for foreigners versus Koreaners. Actually foreigners facing Koreans.
Koreaners. I think Koreaners are what we call like Polton Hydra and stuff. Like they're like the foreign Koreans.
I mean, I think it's just good in general. I think we were talking about Warriors talking about the WCS circuit, which I think is obviously good as well. You know, because it is true. All those European, you know, all the qualifiers, anyone can win. The only thing the thing that I also like about the Kesper Cup relating to WCS is the thing that I used to love about the old WCS format is we would always have qualifiers, and there would always be something to stream. And at least with the Kesper Cup, there'll be a lot of qualifiers, a lot more things to be streamed. And I think, you know, even like with BlizzCon, we'll have this one big event, right? And it just happens for a weekend. But with qualifiers and multiple qualifiers, there's just, you know, there's things to watch throughout the week for maybe a couple of weeks. And I think that's a really important part, because in, you know, pretty much every year of StarCraft until this year, we've had a situation where there were qualifiers, felt like every week. That would go on for maybe a month. And it was just a lot of interesting StarCraft to watch. So I think having some high-level, meaningful games to be played is just exciting for us all.
That's so true. This year, there's been like so few. You get all of a sudden like 1 week where there's like 10 qualifiers, and then there's just like nothing for this month. Like that's why I actually like ran the Wardy Open, because there's just like there's nothing going on in like August and September apart from like 2 WCS qualifiers. It's like it is like a real difference from last year.
Yeah,
I think
it's not really related to Kesper Cup. Kind of off topic here, but. That's my biggest. I mean, it's not maybe not in the control. It was financial or something. I don't know why they changed the WCS system. And I'm not saying that the new WCS system is that bad. I love the the actual events and watching them and all the foreigners. I love watching the foreigners play. The only thing I have complaint is our new challenger system is basically it's basically just the ladder, and there's no watching of that. People just play the ladder, and maybe you'll get someone to stream it, their own grind. But the old challenger we used to have. Also, I'm saying we'd have qualifiers. We had 3-4 qualifiers for North America and Europe, and all the regions. There'd be 3-4 qualifiers for Challenger. For me, there'd be so much to watch. And then with this year's Challenger, it's over in. It doesn't even happen.
Yeah,
I talked about this on like
of content and qualifiers and stuff, and now we just have a day of ladder.
There are many missed nights for me. I will say my biggest upset about the newest WCS. There are many nights I miss now where I used to just get like a 6-pack of beer and go home and watch cats play rough. And just not understand what was going on, but be thoroughly entertained. And I would say that's the biggest thing I miss about just seeing the up-and-coming NA players. Like, it's a cool way to see kind of who's bubbling up, and if you watch those qualifiers, you can always tell, and it's harder to tell now. Like, who's bubbling it up, who's making it closer to those queues on Liquipedia, like... Yeah, it's gone a little bit. But Eric, I want to give you the... I know you haven't got to talk too much. I want to give you the final word on Kesper Cup. Any thoughts you want to add on before we take a quick break and then move on to our big topic?
I really like the Kesper Cup coming into the foreground here, because I feel like Korean StarCraft need a shot of the arm. Pro League might be going away possibly. And I feel like there needs to be more Korean opportunities for them to play, make money, for them to be a Korean professional StarCraft scene. In terms of inviting foreigner players, it kind of feels like the 1980s movie Bloodsport, where like the best players across the world are being flown into a special dark tournament to compete on a world championship tournament. And I really like the idea of it. I think it's going to make for some great StarCraft. Before he said anything about, is it going to maybe undermine or maybe overshadow or something like that, BlizzCon, maybe. I didn't really think about that before. But I feel like it's going to be a really good appetizer for BlizzCon. I feel like it's going to get a lot of people talking and watching StarCraft. They're going to see some of the favorite players. Some of these players might be going to BlizzCon as well. And I feel like it's going to be a lot of great entertainment at the end of this year.
Quickly jump on that. I completely agree. And it will be a good appetizer, and it will give maybe the foreigners, because I think about, I have, in my opinion, as a fan of foreign StarCraft, I'm really hoping we don't get absolutely wiped at BlizzCon, because then all we hear for the next year is, oh, I don't want to watch foreigners. Look at these Korean. Look at what happened at BlizzCon. So maybe this will at least help where, maybe if Neeb loses in Kespa or something, he'll lose the nerves and he'll feel better in BlizzCon. Maybe he'll help more foreigners beat some of the Koreans with two tournaments going.
I just say, as like fans of foreign StarCraft, you disappoint me in your lack of faith. There's only going to be 4 foreigners. There's a global qualifier, guys. Just because it's on the Korean server, don't doubt everyone. I'm going to have 12 foreigners at Kespa.
They've never seen me in that qualifier. I'll take it by storm.
There you go.
I will say.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in terms of your global qualifier thing, Morty, at the last Kespa Cup, they made it so hard for foreigners to register that Bly was the only one that figured it out, and everyone else in the European server qualifier was Koreans, and they all just played on. Yeah, you had to fill out a physical document and like fax it in. It was ridiculous.
You gotta fax it in,
or scan an email or something along those lines.
Like you have to go to Kinko's or something like that to fax in something these days.
Hey man, Kespa's a government bureaucracy. Like.
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy, but it's true.
Wow.
But
I just wanted to add one thing about, we talked about Challenger and ladder system. Y'all make a really good point that you can't watch Challenger. That's a good point. And it was a really great StarCraft to see Outliers and a lot of these bubble players doing very well. But you all have to admit, it's made ladder a lot better.
Yeah, but it's just destroyed like a completely of like something that's even more important. Like ladder may be better, but Challenger was so good. Do you know, if you go back like 2 years, I forgot about this. Challenger took place over like 2 weeks, and it was so exciting.
And then you'd have Premier as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Last forever.
And like you'd actually see people in Challenger who are like, oh crap, they're challengers, right? And now it's just like, oh, it's the top 60 ladder. It's players who play in Premier anyway.
It is a bit anticlimactic. You are correct. But just to play devil's advocate, it does make ladder practice a lot more meaningful.
Yeah, sure.
But you are correct. It's a lot more anticlimactic. It used to last for quite a while. If you were a challenger, you were officially a challenger player for quite a while, and it was really quite rewarding if you got to that place.
Yeah, I don't mean for this to drag on forever, but I will say that is very true. But I mean, like the challenger the ladder is really good for not a long period. I mean, it's still okay, and I love how it got rid of pretty much the barcode scenario as well, where everyone actually has their own name. But that was just the biggest thing when you look at like even the HOTS viewership and the viewership now. It was just a lot of high-level tournaments and action going on with all the qualifiers and the Premier and Challenger, because it was 4-month seasons, so you had one every 4 months, or there was 4 different seasons, of course. So there was 4 throughout the year. But they would last so long. It just felt like you always had stuff going on. Like by the time Premier ended, you'd already have to get ready for next year's Challenger, and it would go seamless, I thought.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to go to a quick 2-minute break. And when we be back, we're going to talk about team leagues in StarCraft 2, specifically those outside Korea. And that's why everyone was brought here. This is kind of our panel of experts on that. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. And you guys are watching The Drop here on Nerd Street Gamers.
Nice.
Yeah!
Woo! Yeah!
When you reach the end, will you wait for me? Holding out a torch that's lighting up the way. I can't run and I can't crawl, but as soon as I scale your castle walls, I'll try to find you. 'Cause I know I see it all tonight. Oh, I see it all tonight. I want you come alive. I feel the world around us. I see it all
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back. We're getting ready to talk about our main topic, and I'm going to take just a moment before we dive into that to kind of talk about the format that this show is going to be taking in the future. It's a little bit different in the first episode. So the first half of the show, we're just kind of going to talk about the topics that's going on, kind of the typical thing you expect in most StarCraft 2 talk shows. But the second half of the format, it's going to be a really in-depth discussion on a topic. For example, it's Team Leagues this time, that all of our panelists are like carefully selected to have a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge on, and will hopefully be super opinionated and can fight with each other or be at least in violent agreement. And hopefully it'll just generate some really good discussion, because I didn't want to have an issue where someone was, happy to come on the show and they're a nice person, but they don't really have anything to say about the topic at hand. That's not an issue we're going to have. So we're going to be getting into Team Leagues, and I want to start by talking about one of the smaller ones, but it's still one of the only Team Leagues running now. So Dust Team League just wrapped up.
Yes.
Eric, I know that you guys are playing in it. Were you playing in it as well, Chris? Your flip side?
Not this season.
Okay.
Past seasons.
Yes.
So I guess let me just start by saying, how seriously do you guys take Dust, Eric? I know it looked like you didn't have probably the result you necessarily would have wanted. Was that important to you guys? Like, how does Dust feel? I know it's primarily a North American tournament, right?
Yes. There's a whole bunch of teams that play, and to answer your question, we take it very seriously. We really want our best players to play all the time. If we have an up-and-coming player, we'll probably put them first or second just so they get that experience, but we really want our ace players here ready to play. And it's not the result we wanted, but we did have a good time playing this season and all the previous seasons.
Cool. And Chris, how about you guys? I know you weren't active participating in this season, but do you think Dust has been a good platform for you guys so far to kind of help or to develop the team when you were active in it?
The flip side's a little differently just because we never really had that big of a roster, right? Like Psystorm has quite a big roster where they can they have a lot of different players. But yeah, I mean, it's same thing with us where you'd always want to win. I mean, you'd always want to put your best players out there, and it's competitive. It's competitive. I just always enjoyed all team leagues for the aspect we talked about earlier, where I'm not even that great. I'm not a very good player, but I'd go out and I would lose, and I would feel so bad, man. I would feel so bad, and it's like I'm not even supposed to be in. Like I play like True or something. This is just an example. I didn't actually play him, but I'm not supposed to beat him, but I'd still feel horrible for letting my team down. It's just one of those things that as a player, you want to win, and you're motivated to win, and you want to get better as a player because you want to be like, hey guys, I got this. I'll win a couple games for us, and I think it's an important aspect, and it gives you a sense of team. Feels good.
Cool. And then the other league that I want to talk about is obviously the bigger one. It's the one we brought our expert on, SC2 TIL. Season 7 just wrapped up, right, Morty? Season 7?
Season 6, mate.
Season 6.
Are you kidding?
Oh man, counting is not one of my strong suits, guys. Did not graduate the first grade. Actually, just went right through it.
Nice.
I just want to very quickly. Can we just? I want my say on Dust. I want to really just say that I'm really impressed that Dust is like an American team league that really promotes itself, keeps itself to like solid schedules. It's really easy to tune in and watch. Like it's really sick. Like when I tried to run an American team league, like if you just go like search SC2ITL America, look at the playoffs, you'll see what happened. We had like 4 teams in the semifinals, and then all of a sudden only one of them still existed. So
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. So like Dust is a really sick like team league.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams.
They do the right things to like make themselves a successful team league as well.
Yeah, and actually, let me jump in and throw my 2 cents in on Dust. It's definitely really cool. I would say the biggest weakness is you said it's easy to know when it's on. It's not always easy to catch a cast. If I had like advice to give to the guys that ran Dust League, I don't know if they're watching or not, I would say aggressively court casters. There's a lot of casters that would love to cast something like that just to kind of strut their stuff. Guys like Drenok, Trignol cast a lot of stuff. I mean, even in the playoffs, like I was casting them towards the end, like a super casual cast where I was like hanging out with a bunch of the guys on Team Ascension, and we were like all just kind of drinking and talking over the game basically. But that was like one of the only casts. There was player point of view streams, but that was I think the only cast towards the end of the night. I think Penguin stopped casting once it was over. So it's definitely a cool league. It seems super well run. Everyone involved has great things to say about it. But I think, and maybe it's not their priority, but I think if the organizers wanted to aggressively court kind of up-and-coming casters or content creators or just anyone to help like shed some visibility on it, I think that could go a really long way. And I think there's a lot of people that would love the opportunity and just don't think about it.
I would cast it if it wasn't at like 2 a.m. Like seriously, because there's matches that go on. It's a good league.
If I may jump in, and I think we'll probably go in more depth about this later, but it's really important that a thing like Dust allows the team to really self-cast, and you get your name, get your brand out there, and allows you the opportunity to get more Twitch viewers, more Twitch followers, or any streaming revenue that can be generated from it. So I think it's very, very important just for players and teams just to, as you say, stream this more and get the content out there.
Yeah, I've just jumping on that. I got a couple points. First is I think that's a great point as well. And the thing about the Dust League is it never really has a lot of viewership. But as a player in general, and especially if you're not a player that especially with Dust League, there's not a ton of it's not all the teams aren't top teams. So for a lot of the players out there, you're maybe not a top player. But just even being streamed to even 5-10 viewers, just having your game streamed is a great feeling for a player. I know when my first game, I don't remember way back when, but maybe I think I played Destiny on the ladder back in Wings Liberty. And I was so nervous because I was on a stream. And it's just, even if you have 5 viewers, 6 viewers, you got a couple of your teammates watching, it's awesome to play a game stream. And I think Dust is also really impresses me, the fact that they actually are so consistent, have so many teams, and have lasted so long with the amount of little they have some advertisement, but there's almost no Twitch viewership, and it's impressive to me. It's a really awesome thing to think about how it's just they're kind of pursuing it and tackling it, and they're continuing it all without this huge exposure. And I think that's awesome that they're able to generate the survivability of this without a ton of exposure. I think that's not easy to do.
Cool. So does anyone have any last thoughts they want to throw in on Dust before we move on to the next topic?
It was a great tournament, and I'm looking forward to next season.
Cool.
And this time we're going to win next season.
Yeah. Wardy, I'm going to let you take the lead on this. We're going to talk about SC2 TIL. If you want to give us a super quick bird's eye view of it before we jump in, just in case anyone's watching that maybe only watches solo leagues or isn't super familiar with it.
It's a team league, and literally every team in Europe plays in it. More or less. Every team you'd probably expect to see in it. I don't know. That's a bird's idea, right? I don't know what does a bird's eye?
Yeah, so you've got three.
It's like a team league.
Right, but you've got 3 divisions, right? And like the top teams are in Division 1, and it's possible to move up from Division 3 to Division 1.
Yeah, sure. So we got 3. We currently run 3 divisions. At least the last season we did. So we got first division, which is invites and qualifiers only. And that's like a 20. We charge an entry fee for every division to like build a prize pool. So that's like a €20 prize pool and has like a €2,000 entire prize pool and stuff, and some products, etc. So that's like the very best teams, and that's what we focus on broadcasting and stuff. So that's like Liquid just came in second place in this after winning season 4. They came second in season 6 behind Millennium. We also have teams in there like Dead Pixels and Blade. You know, pretty much every top team outside of Korea. Flipside, Psystorm obviously as well. So that's Division 1. Division 2 is open entry to anyone. It's advised to be like Master League level plus. So basically any team that doesn't make it into the first division will want to play second division if their players are Master Leagues, because that's the next division. That's like a €5 entry fee, so very accessible to everyone. And we usually get about like 40 to 60 signups for that. So that builds up like about 200, 300 prize pool, and we put like 100 base in. So it's still a pretty big prize pool. But it doesn't get much coverage, which is something I'll talk about later as well. And the third division is open entry as well, but it's for bronze to diamond. And we've had some issues like league locking it and stuff exactly. I think the last season we actually said there's no restriction on league, but it's advised for bronze to diamond. So you can go in and win nothing and beat everyone. It's advised that you play like bronze to diamond players. I think it can be like maxed it out as like 2 master players per team max, or you can decide how many masters you use. It's just very difficult because like every single season, people are like, we signed up for bronze to diamond. Now, like half my players are masters because they got promoted because all of a sudden masters is 10%. It's just like it's really, really difficult to control. So it's out in obviously it qualifies for first division, but other than that, it's like a 9 to 12 week group stage, depending on the size of each group in each division. About 100 teams overall play, and it goes into playoffs.
Cool. All right, so that was a great summary. Thank you. I mean, it's the biggest team league outside Korea, and potentially next year it'll be the biggest team league, and it's online only, and it just wrapped up. It was a super awesome finals. It was Millennium versus Liquid, right?
Yeah, it was great finals.
And
we're actually really blessed with finals. Like every single season we've had has been like an amazing grand final. In season 1, like even the grand finals you don't expect to be, like season 1, Mind Sanity won against Cascade. That was like the start of a massive rivalry in the team league for them. Like season 2, 80 game and all killed Optimus, like someone completely unknown to many people, like all killed. Like we have great grand finals every single time. Every single is fantastic. Truly blessed.
Okay, so you use the all-kill format for every single match. I want to talk, we talked about it a little bit briefly, but I want to talk about Pro League versus all-kill here. So Eric, as a team captain, if Wardy, let's say tomorrow, switched to the Pro League format, where you had to pre-commit your players weeks in advance, would you guys still be able to play in SC2 TIL? If you had to say, I'm committing to having Pili play number 1 game, I'm committing to Penguin play number 2, etc., and you had no flexibility in your lineup, would you still be able to play?
We'd still be able to play, but the strategy that involved would be completely different than all-kill formats. You have to talk to your players. You have to know which maps you're best on, and hopefully you can really get the appropriate matchups so you have some sort of strategic advantage. But yes, we would still be able to play. It just would be a completely different strategy.
But is there a concern like obviously if someone was supposed to play and they can't, suddenly that's a walkover? Like how much... Yeah. How feasible would that have been to commit? Because I know that Shoutcraft Clan Wars used the Pro League format, and like they had a lot of like would have been walkovers, but the team was nice, and they were like, okay, you can substitute someone else. Like, do you think that as the captain of Psystorm Gaming, do you think you guys would have had a walkover problem if it was a Pro League format?
That's a great question, and I can't say for certain, but there are times where your players just can't make it for whatever reason. And then if that is the only player that will be playing the match, if it is a walkover, and that is a terrible shame, where in this all-kill formats, you could substitute a different player. So it's very possible that we could have those problems if we had this sort of format. It's a very good point. And the thing is, at this level, we like to think of ourselves as professionals, but in this current StarCraft scene, not everyone can make a living playing StarCraft. You have professionals that might get some streaming revenue, they might get some money, but nothing really live off of. And they have to work another job, maybe even 2 jobs potentially. And if that's the case, then real life will come first. Whereas you have other players that this is what they do. They play StarCraft. And if they play StarCraft professionally, full time, this is the way that they make money, then those are players that you would expect to be there to play. So if you have those players on your team and you're giving those players a contract, then you need to be 100% confident they will do these obligations and they will do these team leagues.
All right, Chris, I want to throw the same question to you really quickly. If it was Pro League, would Flipside still be able to participate in any Clan Wars at all?
Well, we lost Puck and Bales, and, our roster is relatively unactive, truth be told, and no, I don't think we would. And I think in general, most teams across the board would not be. I just don't think it's very plausible for many teams at all to make Pro League style work, because I think especially for just most every team, you just kind of get a pull on who's there, some people are here, and it takes so much more planning. Like, imagine if Wardy had to set this up and be like, all right, you two are going to play, and instead it had to set up all these different matchups for all these different games, and then it's like, oh, this player can't make it, this player can't. It just would be absolute hassle. And I think they're both good. I mean, it's I enjoy the Pro League format. I think I still prefer the all-kill format more, but I don't think the Pro League format's that bad where you really prepare for an opponent, but I just don't think it's very possible outside of that concise place in Pro League. I don't think it's really reasonable anywhere else.
All right. Well, I gave you the last word on that topic, so I want to go ahead and give you the first word on the next one. So team leagues, we've talked a little bit about this already, but what role do you think they play in the ecosystem? Do you think that they've helped to develop you as a player? Have they developed your teammates as a player? Do you think they make you more valuable if you're looking to get picked up by another team in the future?
I think it depends. I think most of the time, most players, I would say yes. I think some players, though, it really depends. I mean, some players are part of a team, but they're not a part of a team. If you know what I'm saying, where like they're on your team, but it's like, well, maybe they don't really want to. Just, they're kind of they kind of want to do their own thing, which is fine. I mean, everyone wants to do their own thing. But I know for me personally, joining Flipside, joining a new team, joining a new group of guys, it was definitely a really motivating time for me. It made me want to play more StarCraft than I ever have. And, it made me want to win and help out the team. And it's just fun to be a part of a group of guys, have a tough day on ladder. You can, make a stupid balance wine in the Skype chat or whatever you want to do. I think it is very important just to have somebody to talk, because like you go on, a tough losing streak, or you don't have practice partners, you can feel lost and you kind of fizzle out of StarCraft. But if you have a group of guys there and it's like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing in this matchup at all, or things like that, it definitely is important for the ecosystem. I think as well though, it's kind of hard for the ecosystem as well sometimes, because some players they want to be by themselves, or you guys talked a little bit about last week having like lower level players need more vision for lower level players on the cusp, like under 5,700, under certain thresholds, they want to try to get more vision for lower players. I think for teams, it's similar where you like want to get vision, but sometimes it's hard to get that exposure and stuff. But I think in general, teams are just very good. I would recommend joining a team even if you don't even know who they are. Just join them and say, hey, guys, I want to join your team. And if you don't like them, you can leave. But being a part of a group is fun.
I have to say that team leagues are exceptionally important. As I mentioned before, they foster new talent. They foster the amateur scene. And honestly, if we didn't have Dust League, StarCraft TL improved, there's really no chances for an amateur to really jump into the pro scene unless they magically make Challenger and then they get to Premier and then do really well in the tournament. Or maybe perhaps they go to Cheesedelphia or they go to Sandstorm Cup or some crazy big land and win it all. Perhaps they'll get some fan base there. But that's much more difficult. It's much more likely that you'll be part of a team league and you get to participate and you get that sort of exposure. And as you all know, I mean, you can play ladder in isolation at home and you can show good games. But if you're on a stage or if you're being streamed live or if there's a bunch of people watching you, your mind can get in your way, whether it's a bunch of adrenaline or fear, or maybe it's lack of experience. A lot of people don't feel comfortable being on a stage unless they have a lot of exposure to it. And being in a team league, you don't have a lot of people watching you, but it's just enough that if you're used to it, you will get that adrenaline dump, and that might mess up your mechanics if you're a mechanically driven player. But let's say you're a mind game player, let's say you like to throw out a little cheese. Maybe you'll talk yourself out of doing something crazy where you normally would because you're worried about looking dumb in front of a live audience. And you can't have that hesitation at all if you're in a really big tournament. If you're on stage, you need to be committed. You got to be a shark, and you got to get things done. And if you're having a bunch of issues with how you're playing, or if you think that you're going to be playing not well due to your nerves, then you need to get that out of the way. And for an amateur to get that exposure, they have to play team leagues. And I think it's exceptionally important for you to move on to the next level. And I don't think there's enough team leagues, if we're being honest. I feel like the more, the better, if we're being completely honest.
Right. I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to jump over Wardy here, but I got a quick thing to jump on that is, I mean, I stream pretty regularly, and I still felt that same exact thing where, I would play, let's say, Base Trace cast me, Wardy's cast me, so I'm getting casted, and all of a sudden, I don't trust myself anymore like I do on my stream. I start saying to myself, well, maybe they've watched my stream. And, maybe it's different because I'm a streamer, but I do say to myself, well, they probably know my builds. And then maybe I do something I just don't normally do. And then I go out of my comfort zone.
Trap. Yeah.
I'm like, man, I never do that. But, and it is important. The adrenaline dump is, you absolutely feel it. And it is nerve wracking playing. And especially, if you're in the game against another opponent on the other team and your entire team's in the game with you, watching you. But, getting a win, or loss, but hopefully a win, is such an awesome feeling with everyone watching you and seeing you beat the other guy. It's very thrilling.
And when you stream, I mean, those are basically your friends. A lot of them, I mean, you love some trolls in your stream, but a lot of them do support you.
Yeah.
And when you're being casted to a live audience, or if you're on a stage somewhere, they're not all your fans. There's people that work the other guys. Some people have never seen you play, don't give any shits about who you are. And that's a different stage to be on.
Yeah. Not necessarily a bad stage, just a different
Not necessarily a bad stage, but if it's different, some people will doubt themselves. You have to be a very confident person for you to do what you know you're good at. I've been there where you're like, let me just do this. It's something that I've never done before. Like, okay, I'm just going to proxy hatch, double proxy hatch this for us right now.
Talk yourself into them knowing what you're going to do.
And then I'm going to pull all my drones because he's never going to see this coming yet. And you know what? You've never done it before, and then you look like a total moron because you've never done it before. Like, why the hell do you do that? After you're like, oh my god, why did I just do what I'm good at? But sometimes when you're on a pedestal, you talk yourself out of it, and you really need to get that out of the system. And team leagues is a nice little stepping stone to the next step.
All right.
Maybe that's Test had in Pro League. Man, he was like, oh crap, maybe he's seen me play all the other Pro League matches. Like, God.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, right. Then I guess I'm just going to cannon rush. Greatest idea.
But Wardy, so what role do you think they serve? Why did you start SC2? Why did you start the SC2 Improved Team League?
I started SC2 ITL because the admins of another team league really pissed me off at how stupid they were. So I started my own team league.
Come on, names. I'm going to Reddit.
It was this team league called SC2 CTR. I'll let you tell the story because it's really it blows my mind. So we showed up for our match, right? And it's like, let's say it's 7 p.m. or something, okay? Which is like 7 p.m. European time, which is like 6 p.m. our time. So we show up, they're not there. And then like 15 minutes passes or something, and like they're not there. So we take the like screenshots and send it in. And we're like, hey, they didn't show. And then they come back to us and say, hey, you've been walkovered because you didn't show up. And we're like, what do you mean? And they're like, hey, look, well, you sent us some screenshots, but it's too early. And I was like, well, that's because we're from the UK, so an hour behind, so that's our time zone, right? And then they were like, well, they were here for an extra hour and a half waiting for you guys. So what happened is that this other team had showed up, and they were like an hour ahead of Europeans, so they had showed up like half an hour late, seen we weren't there because we'd gotten, and taken a screenshot and then claimed they'd been waiting for an hour and a half. And the admin just could not understand the concept of time zones. He was just like, well, if you don't want to get walkover, show up. I had this conversation over like 5 days with like 3 different admins. And all of a sudden, one day, one of them was like, oh, you mean you're in a different time zone? I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe if you scroll up the last 5,000 messages, you'll see that's what I've been saying about once every 5 lines. That's why I started the SC2ITL, because it really, really, really just triggered me at how horrendous this team league was ran, and I thought I could do a better job, quite literally. So that's why I started it. What was the question?
I think that story was better than any answer you could have given. So let's just go ahead and move on.
No, let me just
Okay.
very quickly on like.
Yeah, of course.
Chris and Eric did a really good job of basically saying everything about whatever the question was. But I know what the question was. I do, because I've got examples like just in SC2ITL this season. I just want to like bring up some names. So like Minato, Rail, Funk, Fear. Are those any like obviously like their names, which we probably all recognize as like super StarCraft fans and like we play on the ladder or whatever, and I cast them. But to a lot of people, those are players who are relatively unknown. But those players are in the top 10 of the rankings of SC2ITL Season 6. They're placed above Uthermal, Showtime, Vortex, E-Laser, True, just as some examples, Scarlet, with better win rates. It's really kind of like, just to kind of emphasize basically that it's a great stepping stone to kind of show yourself, prove yourself, and yeah, it's just a great way to show that you can play good games. And because it's a best of one, sometimes like against each player, it's like obviously a bit of randomness, and people look at it and it's like, oh, it's just a best of one. If Minato, for example, came out, he like all killed some guys. Rake from EC Visualize, he's a Norwegian Protoss player, and everyone sort of knows he's really good. But then when he comes out all kills Millennium, everyone's like, what? Yeah, like what? So it's examples to kind of back it up.
Can we talk about how the all kill system is just so awesome?
Oh, but all kills.
Yeah, I'll give you 30 seconds on it. Go.
It's so awesome because you have a player. Okay, we're putting this player. He's awesome. He's gonna crush this matchup. This matchup. He's great, and he wins. And then the next person is in, and it's his worst matchup. It's on a really crappy map, and you're like, oh no, how is he gonna do this? Like we have a Zerg on Dawson Station. Like, he beat us this map. He might have only played this map 3 times this year. What's he gonna do? And I think it really creates some really great matchups.
There's so many more storylines with Full Kill and Pro.
Completely.
We talked about this earlier. Like it's really just so much better in every way. I'm saying. The only negative is that sometimes it can be overshadowing if you have one really good player that can carry a team. That can have a bit of an effect, like Tasia back in the IPTL days. And sometimes it can be a bit like, you only see one player because they all kill or something, which can be like, I think they're like the only negatives of the all kill. Otherwise, it's easier to run, organize, get players to show up. It's just so much easier for everyone involved to play all kill as well. I'm almost certain.
I think from a viewership standpoint, I think it's bad to put your best player first.
Yeah.
Because if they all kill, then the rest of your team doesn't get any experience. Like, if you're trying to foster talent, you want them there first. You want them to get their feet wet.
Psystorm and Mind.
So all kill and Pokemon are not that different. Pokemon is an all kill game.
Oh my god, you're about to put me into a really big tangent here about Magikarp.
I can't do that because we have
know.
to move on. We can talk about Magikarp and Gyarados.
We're not stay here for hours.
No, but we do have to move
I
on.
love you so much, Joe. God damn it. Why don't you love us like we love you?
We're actually going to be talking about the next topic, and this is something I didn't have in there before, but I've kind of popped into my head, and I really want to get everyone here's opinion on it. So let me start with you, Wardy. When we have in SC2 Improved Team League, you have On Fire Clan. So I want to talk about the difference between a team. Everyone knows what a team is, right? Like, Team Liquid is a team, Flipside Tactics is a team, Sidestorm Gaming is a team. No one would dispute them as teams. What about clans and free agents and merc squads? How, as a team league organizer, do you deal with that?
I put a pretty strict rule in where I want as many people to play in the team league as possible because viewership. Like, for viewership, like, it's great to have On Fire play it, but I want to make sure it doesn't get too ridiculous. And we do that just by like, like making sure the rosters don't just randomly add players and stuff. Like, they have to have players added like a week before. For like mergers and stuff, like if 2 teams join together, they have to have like reasons. For example, I think my rule is something like if you only have 4 players in your team, can merge with another team, but one of the teams has to only have 4 players, because otherwise it's just like, otherwise like Liquid and Millennium join up, and who's ever gonna kill Liquid and Millennium? Like Lick William, it's just not gonna happen. So it's just, I think it's fine to have happen because it's great for the viewership. I think most of the players don't really mind it as well, as long as it's well regulated. Like, as long as it's sort of set in advance, like these guys are a clan, and it sort of makes sense. Like, for example, like On Fire made a lot of sense because it was sort of like Scarlet sort of thing. It was like sort of a group of teams. It sort of doesn't make sense, but for me it does, because they're sort of identified as On Fire.
Yeah, and they're all friends, and they were all teamless at the time.
For example, like Baguette, like last year in season 4, Baguette were like a French clan basically. Like basically it was Millennium plus a couple of like DNS and Minimath, and for example, and that was fine as well. I think everyone just realizes like these players just sometimes don't have a full team to play with or whatever. And I think as long as it's not ridiculous and you like watch it as like a organizer, then the players don't mind. Everyone's quite happy, and then obviously from that point on, it's just like everyone's happy, and the viewers are happy as well because they get to see all their favorite players.
Okay, Eric, I want to ask you. You didn't actually play them in the playoffs, but there was Team Bear Me in Dust League.
Yes.
And they seemed more kind of like a mercenary team in the sense that Panda Bear Me is on Root, right? Yeah, Panda Bear Me is on Root.
He wasn't at the time.
Okay.
So it was kind of like On Fire was a bunch of friends, a bunch of high-level players like Panda Bear Me and his mates from Australia. I think, what was his name? Doesn't matter. But yeah, he had a bunch of friends and a bunch of high-level players. It wasn't quite as well organized as On Fire, but kind of felt a bit like that.
So, did you feel there was a fairness aspect when you were playing them, or like if you played them all during the season, or did it just feel like you were playing a clan that might not have been a full pro team, but that was okay?
Was it fair to us because they barely knew who was on their team? Probably not, because after a few of their players lost their lists, like, oh well, we have to go find some more players, I guess, and we're just kind of like, well, come on, man, that's not really reasonable. But at the same time, we're really competitive, and we're like, all right, get a player, let's do this. Doesn't matter. We're here to win no matter who we're playing, and let's go from there. But it was not the best example yet.
That's why I think it's important for the organizers to like be like, here's the team list. Like, you can check the team list. If a player's not on the team, they don't play. Like, that's how we I have a really archaic system. I literally use Google Documents and
Sorry, what? So that your mic cut out?
I just use a very archaic system. Like, I use Google Forms and Documents. I just update it every Sunday night, and if you've not changed your roster before Sunday night, your player doesn't play because they're not in the roster. It's not fair to the other team. They don't know who they're playing against. So I think it's just very important for people for the organizers to make it so that it's fair and they don't run into these sort of issues, I think.
All right, Chris, I have a bit of a different question to ask you, but it's related. So you've been pretty candid about the fact that your team is fairly inactive right now. Would you consider playing on a Merc team or like a clan tag, or would you not feel okay about that?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would feel okay with it. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, it seems fine. I think though, I couldn't really. I don't know if I would join a Merc team. If it would be like me grabbing a couple other guys not on team, I'd probably rather just leech onto a team already existing. But I think I wouldn't have any problems with it. Yeah, I don't. That's something I haven't really thought about.
Flipside were actually a Flipside Elevate in SC2 ITL, which is only like plus Massa, but
yeah.
Massa played like literally once.
Yeah, I did. And he came in, and I think
he like all killed.
Yeah,
he came in once, all killed, and there's never seen for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I warmed him up with a grueling 5-minute loss.
Nice.
Okay, Wardy, I have a question for you as a tournament organizer. This is related, I guess, even if it's a bit different. So in Dust League,
massive rant, aren't you?
so in Dust League, Psystorm Gaming was knocked out by Team Gravity. One of the people that did the knocking out was Semper, who has been en route for about a month now. How do you deal with roster changes in a team league? What's the best way to do it when in the foreign scene things can be in a bit of flux, and some teams are kind of less concrete teams and more clans?
I mean, I do the exact like I said before. Like, you submit roster changes like the week before. If it's not done, they don't play. And I guess did he play for Gravity while he was still en route?
Yeah.
That's sort of interesting. I think in a way it's like, so if Root were playing in the league, which they weren't, then that would be bad. But if they are, I think if they're not in the league, then I think for Gravity it's probably, I don't think it's a bad thing, because like, I'm like torn on the issue. I think it's sort of okay, but at the same time I sort of see the issues with it. Like, I think it still adds to like some of the excitement, and I think it's kind of nice to still have like let them play out if they play and like have a final goodbye or whatever. But I mean, it's like depends on what side you're on, right? Like, you know, if you're the team that's getting all killed by Semper, you're gonna be like, well, this is bullshit, man. Like, what tournament is this? But if you're like the team who, like, I don't know, that's a really tough question.
Well, let's ask the team that got killed by Semper. Did you feel that was fair? I'm not asking you to like go on a massive tear. I was just saying, if you could have evaluated it, do you think it could have been handled better? Or do you think that was okay the way that it was handled?
I mean, if my memory serves, I believe the start of season is the team that was assembled at the start of season was your team. So if someone moved on or someone left the team, they were still able to play for said team. That was my understanding. And if we assume that is correct, then despite the loss, I'm fine with it.
Okay, cool. That's a very, very fair-minded attitude of you.
I think it's just like, as in my eyes, I think what I do in that situation, I usually look at it like on a case-by-case basis. I just sort of say like, oh, well, yeah, okay, in this scenario, it sort of makes sense to let them still play, but in this scenario, it wouldn't. You know what I mean? I think it's just one of those things. Like, especially if it's like, if he joins like towards the end of the season, like the other team, I think letting him finish the season's okay. But if it was like close to the start, it's just like, well, you're going to play the entire season for an extra.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to just look at it case by case, and again, just think what's best for the tournament, which means viewership and for players as well, and like, you know, fairness to teams and stuff like that. So I think you just have to look at it case by case. The best way to do it. I don't think having like a hard set rule is going to benefit anyone.
And if I also add, I mean, if we won, we won. If we lost, we did lose, but it doesn't look good or sound good to complain about, oh, he wasn't on the team, man. He shouldn't have been able to play. And that's not our job to say that. It's our job to put in our best effort and try to win no matter what. And the end of the day is, did you win? Did you try your hardest to win? If so, okay, let's move on from there. So I'm still fine with how it went down.
I think that's the attitude of a lot of teams. Like when, for example, Dead Pixels absorbed Carnage Esports, and so it became like Dead Pixels on Fire or something. I can't remember how it went down. I think Dead Pixels were with On Fire originally, then they absorbed Carnage, so they like gained some extra players. But like, every team was just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, you know, we come here to prove we're the best, and if we can't deal with these guys, then we're not the best, so we don't deserve to win and whatever. Like, no, I don't think any teams really feel like super hard done by in those sort of situations, unless it's real, just like stupid
Right.
from the adverts.
I don't like to even hear myself making excuses. No one else wants to hear excuses.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of combine the next three topics that I wanted to talk about. But before I do that, I'm actually gonna say super quick, guys. We are gonna take a couple call-ins at the end. If you want to call in, go ahead and use the command call in chat, and you'll get instructions for how to call in. A guy named Molded Pixels, he's super awesome, will help you out and will give you the contact information to get into this call when the time is right. So if you have a question that you want to ask me or Chris or Wardy or End of Line, just go ahead and throw that command call into chat and it'll get you hooked up. So the next three kind of topics that I'm merging into one because I think they can all be pretty related. So when you play in a team league, and I'm going to start off with you, Eric. When you play in a team league, how much do you weigh, because you said like Dust League is super important to get super seriously, even though the prize pool is not that big. How much do you weigh kind of the prestige of like showing you're the best team in that league versus the prize pool versus just participating in it to develop your players of a lower caliber? Like, of those three factors, what kind of is the biggest for you? What's the smallest when you're taking into consideration whether or not you want to get into a league?
I think the first thing you got to consider is exposure for your brand, exposure for your team. How is this going to do for our team in terms of exposure? Will we be able to stream the games? Will we be able to develop an audience? I feel like that needs to be your first question, because if it gives you good exposure, you should definitely do it, because teams need support in some form or another. And you need to put out the work you got to support your team, either with streaming revenue or etc. After that, we're talking about developing new talent, developing the team. I think that comes second. And I think anything after that is a distant third.
Cool. Chris, I want to throw the same question to you.
I do think you want to go. I personally, for me anyway, I mean, because I'm not really the brand. I mean, you do want to expose yourself and stuff, but I'm so competitive. I think I would just want to be winning. I think it is good to obviously expose new players and have, good experience for maybe your up and comers. But I mean, I think both can happen, right? You send them out early and then you still try to get the win. But I think even if it's a small, I mean, obviously it depends the prize pool a little bit, but the prize pools aren't that drastic, and there aren't enough team leagues where it's like, all right, I'm not going to try as much in this team league, because there really isn't, it's not like, oh, I'm going to try much harder in this team league. I think you're going to be trying to win everywhere. So I'd probably go competitive number one, and then money and exposure and practicing new players after that.
Cool. Wardy, I want to turn this question on its head a little bit for you. So when you're looking to entice everyone to get into your team league, do you look first as saying, hey, I can offer you XYZ exposure because of my viewership numbers? Or do you look at using your prize pool and your gear and that stuff you give away to try to bring people in? Or is it some mix?
I don't think prize pool really has much of an effect. Otherwise, I don't think half the teams that play would play. Because, I mean, €2,000 overall prize pool that plays at 2 teams out of 20, and then you split it between players, it, isn't that much, Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, I think everyone's happy to play because a lot of the time it's fairly low commitment and it's nice to represent your team in a team league. And so I just think it's, the chance to represent your team that's more than anything sort of drags people in. I think that's, the biggest sort of attention pull for teams and stuff, just the attention, you can represent the team, and at least for the players, they're like, oh, we can represent the team, and then obviously the teams want to play because it's exposure for the teams as well. Obviously the prize money for the teams maybe isn't as much as more the players that benefit from the prize money. So I think the players are just happy to play because, they get to show off and play for their team and stuff, and that's something they don't get to do a lot. Obviously, I think money matters a lot and makes it more serious. For example, Mind Sanity. I don't think Mind Sanity took this season not seriously. In fact, I don't think Mind Sanity have taken any season of STITL non-seriously. I know Penguin obviously not anymore, but I know for a long time Penguin was, obviously the manager, and he was always like, hey, we really want to win a second season of STITL, and he was saying, this season, we're going to win. But they also want to use the league as a way to let newer players play, their academy members play, and they're really good at sending 1 or 2 academy members first, and then sending Drogo and Serral, right? Yeah. Just this season, Drogo and Serral didn't show up and played very well. They showed up, they didn't play very well, and so Mind Sanity didn't even make playoffs for the 3rd season in a row, which is incredible. So they just have the worst luck possible. What they do is right. I think they look at it as a good chance to give exposure, but also maybe show off for their teams. So.
Sorry, all of our cams just started dancing in the top left-hand corner, and I
actually had to open my XSplit to kind of.
I don't know what I did, but I deleted it.
It was really distracting. But yeah, just to wrap up, to bring teams in, I think you just need to be the best team lead.
Or the only one, right?
Yeah, that makes you the best.
Yeah.
Hey, but seriously, I know these. I actually really appreciate all the teams playing. This may go off the top a little bit. I always appreciate all these teams playing because, I don't expect teams like Liquid to maybe show up, but especially Liquid, for example. Liquid don't just tweet when they're in the grand finals. All the Liquid players literally go out and retweet. Everyone signed up for this, and they're every single time every one of their players is retweeting. They've really helped to grow the league. Liquid more so than any other team. Some other players will retweet and stuff if you mention them, and they'll introduce, and certain players are very good at it, but there's not a single team like Liquid who their entire team every time is on the retweets, and it just makes it incredible. So if it wasn't for teams, I know it's because
I will say Root is pretty good with it too.
Yeah.
In my experience,
Root's Root's very good at just promoting their players every time they play because they have a dedicated Twitter guy, right? But this is the actual players. And I feel the players on Liquid are very, very good at that, and I think that's just because they're all very passionate about actually having a team league. I know there's some players who play on the team league just because they're team players and they don't actually give a crap. I'm not going to name names, but people have literally come up to me at events before. Some, it was a bit at the Twitch after party, so we were a bit drunk. They literally just, I was like, oh yeah, you're looking forward to this season of the team league? And they're like, couldn't give a fuck. It's a shit tournament. I don't know why we're playing it. but I know a lot of players, it means a lot to them. And I know the Liquid guys are very disappointed that they didn't win this season, for example. So it's a very kind of big mix, and it's like a very kind of widespread opinion, I guess, across the board. But as an organizer, I think you always kind of strive to make it better and to make more teams want to play. And that's why season 7 of Name Here Team League is going to be incredible. It's going to be something you've never seen before. We're working with people we've never worked with before. It's going to be the biggest, the best. In season 6, we broadcast literally 90% of group stage matches, which is insane. That's 9 best of 7s a week. And in season 7, we're going to cast 100% of them. It's going to be incredible. And we're also going to have a full broadcast coverage team for Division 2. It's going to be insane. So we're doing everything to keep bringing teams in and keeping them here.
So, anyways, on to my next kind of topic here. And I'll let you take the first one on this, Chris. Does the foreign team league scene need more than SC2 TIL? Would that help, or would it be too crowded?
I think it depends. I don't think it's necessarily bad to have more team leagues, but I know especially for a lot of, at least the people I know, with life, you got work, you got school, you got so much going on. It can be hard to really commit to maybe multiple days a week. So I think it depends on maybe the size of your team and how available your players' schedules are. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to have more team leagues. But I mean, Wardy does a great job. I will say Wardy is, he's also really good at catering to the players. If a couple players can't show up, reschedule, no big deal. He's a really good host of it, and make sure the players can. He wants to put all the games out there. It doesn't matter if the players can't play. It's like, all right, well, we'll just do it another day. So I will say Wardy does a great job at that, and he does a great job putting it on his own team league. But I think it's never good to have more saturation. But yeah, I wouldn't complain with more saturation. Sure.
And let me say really quickly, I'm super interested in this personally. We were approached, Nerd Street Gamers, by a sponsor that was interested in sponsoring a team league. And
Okay.
not that those talks have gone super far or that we're necessarily going to be doing it,
I'm already planning on it.
but I'm super interested just because I don't know if it makes sense for us. I don't know if that money could be better spent elsewhere. I don't know if people watch it. I don't know if people want to play in it. So I don't want to do something that doesn't make sense. So I'm super interested in seeing what you guys have to say. Eric, do you think Sidestorm Gaming would be super gung-ho if there were more team leagues than just This and Dust?
That's another great question. Either there needs to be more saturation, or or a current team league should get the well-deserved greater exposure than they already have. So, Wardy does an excellent job with his team league. If his team league got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it became an enormous thing, as it should be, or should be in the future, then
As it will be.
as it will be, then that will be a good foundation for this team. And it's either that, or you can have more team leagues to fill in the gaps. So I feel like one or the other is possible.
I think that this is obviously going to be a very biased opinion. Well, the thing is, I think the top teams will play in the top team league and only the top team league, right? So if Ace of Team Story came back tomorrow, my entire plan for season 7 wouldn't change because I'm going to be better than Ace of Team. but it would seem seriously impacted. I might not even run a team league if Ace of Team Story Cup came back, right? Because they could probably put up a prize pool that just outclasses anything I can do, even if I work literal miracles, right? So it's one of those things because the top teams just wouldn't play. Maybe Liquid would because they're really nice guys, but Millennium wouldn't, because I know for a fact, I don't struggle to get teams to play each week, but it's not easy, right? And maybe that's because I'm very flexible with players. but it's because a lot of teams don't have a lot of players to be flexible with, and you've got to remember there's qualifiers going on, there's gauntlet events, base trade events, everything. So much. People want to play and go for SC2 monthly finals, for example. There's so much going on. It's very difficult to necessarily kind of be at that time, to commit to even one team league a week. I think for a lot of teams, especially at the higher end when the team players are like really playing in a lot of other stuff, and if you don't have as big a roster. So I think if there was like a bigger team league, then it would severely impact a lot of, like, for example, like you don't see another team league, like there's not another team league at SCITL right now, because if someone came in and made something like similar or slightly below, they would just not attract the same level of teams. They would attract probably the second half of the first division. But then, why would you invest the money if it's going to get the second half? Like, I think you could do so much better. I think the SCITL only became what it is because it's something already here, like there was nothing there anymore. Sorry, so there's nothing there anymore, and so SCITL filled a gap where all of a sudden teams have a team league to play in again. And obviously, I'm doing everything to make sure that it's not just a gap filler; it is the thing you want to play in anyway, right? But that's sort of like quite a big thing, I think, to kind of keep in mind. Like, teams just don't really necessarily have the time to commit to a lot of leagues and stuff. So I think you just have to sort of sometimes just sort of, yeah.
That's a good point. Wardy, do you think it'll be much wiser from a strategic standpoint to invest in an already established team league that's already celebrated as the best one that we have right now?
If someone approached me and said, "Hey, we want to start a team league," right? I would say, well, I'd look at how much of the money they want to put into it or something, and depending on the money, I might say, well, do you want to run Division 2 of SC2ITL, because that could definitely do with better broadcasting, which is what we're aiming to do in the future anyway, that sort of stuff. But because I definitely think that gains from everyone, because they get their team league, which is under a good brand already. They can put it as their sponsors. Depends what they're aiming for. Like, if it's meant to be Nerd Street Gamers team league, then obviously that doesn't work. But if it's like a sponsor that wants their name on something, then that can work out. I just think that there's actually quite a good saturation of not at the top team leagues, and that's because not below the top, a lot of teams want to play a lot. So Sai Sport League, Alpha Team League, RSTL, those all still exist. Those are all still really good team leagues that exist and people play in it regularly. They're all European leagues. Obviously the NA scene has only got Dust right now, I think.
Dust
until like a couple of months time whenever announced things. But then there's already all of those leagues for these teams to play, and those teams don't expect to take part in a larger prize pool team league to actually win money. They just take part for practicing experience, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I think it's going.
I have one more question for you, if you don't mind, Michelle.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that one of the reasons why it's hard to get teams to commit to more time is because most players, at least in North America, are in kind of college right now, between that 17 to 21 year, and for most people, college comes first. So StarCraft, it puts on the back burner until when they can actually play.
I think everyone just has so many commitments, right? And it's like, I mean, literally, sometimes it's actually easier to schedule with a team who has players who are in college and stuff, and they're not full time. I think it's actually easier to schedule with them sometimes than it is to schedule with the teams who are full time StarCraft. But it's just because there's so much going on. There's cups every day. There's base trade cups. As I said before, I just sort of feel as though I don't know. I feel as though there's a lot of the lower teams do manage to play in a lot of stuff. I feel like just sometimes some teams want to play in the bigger things and they just can't quite, because not all their players are there all the time, and time zones can affect things more than anything too.
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
All right, guys. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up our discussion. Does anyone have any final word on team leagues they want to say before we move into questions? And just a quick thing, guys, if you want to call in, you can add Molded Pixels on Skype, just Molded Pixels, just like that. He'll take your call, he'll direct you to this call. And if you have any Reddit questions, or you can also ask questions in the Reddit topic. That's the two ways we're going to be doing questions. So if you want to get in, we're getting ready to move into that segment. So it is now or never. But last words on team leagues, guys.
Can I just jump in and just rant on something that I really feel
absolutely.
So many people come to me and they're like, "Hey, how do you run a team league and get people to show up?" Right? Because we run a team league like SC2 Community Team League (CTL). right? That was the NA one by Troy guys.
Yeah, that was Chobo.
Yeah, no.
I thought
Chobo.
Troy ran Chobo. Oh.
No. It's a different. Anyway, there's this team league, and it was great. And then they're like, but no one shows up. We have like less than 50% show up rate and participation rate from people that signed up and things like that, right? And it's the same. Like Shoutcraft are like, well, why aren't people signing up for our event and stuff like this? This really bothers me because time after time people are like, team leagues don't work because teams don't care about playing. Liquid didn't sign up to a single Shoutcraft. I just don't understand because I'll just say this right out. I run SC2ITL for 6 seasons now. We've gone from 50 teams to 100 plus teams in a season. And I have used more than one person to help me run the league for about 4 or 5 hours of time, literally in 6 seasons. I run everything on my own, and I get able, and I'm able to kind of bring in, and I get like perfect participation rates and all of this. So I don't understand how other team leagues aren't able to kind of get teams to play, because it's just never an issue I've had. We've had like 95% participation rate in SC2ITL. Even the lower divisions, if you cancel out teams that like quit in the first week or disband or something, teams very rarely no-show. It's like ridiculous because I just don't understand how all these other teams have issues. And I just really feel as though a lot of team league organizers just need to look at it and just say, are we being too strict or what are we really doing wrong? Because I don't believe that Shoutcraft should have had to shut down because of lack of participation. That just makes absolutely no sense to me. Because for my league, Liquid show up every week. They're very easy to schedule with. Millennium show up every week. And that's not to like brag. It's just a genuine like frustration from me to kind of see other team leagues failing and team leagues getting a bad name because I don't understand, and the team's getting a bad name because I don't understand how that happens. Because like, I just don't understand how that happens. Sorry, it's just a bit of a rant, but I really feel like it's something like worth thinking about because we don't have those issues in the SC2ITL. I don't have those issues, yet every other team league seems to. And I don't know what I do differently, or I don't know if I'm just really lucky, but it's just really, really weird.
You're just better than everyone else.
I mean, but like, I don't know if it's just because I'm more flexible, but I know I'm not that flexible. Like, I'm fairly like kind to teams, and if they're like, oh, we can't play today,
you're pretty flexible, I have to say. I mean,
sure, but like maybe you just need to be flexible. Like, did it never occur to these other team league organizers to just be flexible a bit more? Like, especially like, I mean, I'm flexible. I'm broadcasting 90% plus of these matches in the first division, right? Like, if they're barely broadcasting any matches, which is something they don't as well, why aren't they able to be even be more flexible? Like, it's really kind of just.
Maybe they're being too strict because I know in the past, if we've had a conflict, like, I mean, we've had players that are on the other side of the world, and we're like, okay, we can only play, let's say, at this time because it's the only time where we're both awake. And you're like, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see if we can get the other team to agree this time. Okay, they did. Let's do it. And I know that you're really great about that sort of thing, and maybe other teams aren't, perhaps? This is just.
I mean, it's just like something to think about because I mean that's sort of what I think, but I just don't believe that they never thought, like, out of all these team leagues, not one of them has thought, hey, let's just try and just be a bit more flexible. I just really don't understand it because I've like compared figures where I like gone to other team league organizers and compared numbers, and like it's literally through the roof when you look at the comparisons. It's crazy. I just don't understand it.
Would you place the blame on the organizers or the players?
I mean, from my point of view, it's got to be the organizers because the exact same teams that don't show up in other leagues seem to show up in my league. Like, this sort of comes like down to like Ace Team Story Cup, Shoutcraft, for example. Obviously, Ace Team Story Cup was maybe like a very maybe a bit of a bigger event. Like, obviously, it was much bigger in prize pool, etc. And maybe I don't know. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like Shoutcraft. Let's go to Shoutcraft. So like Shoutcraft is like something which should be fairly flexible, right? Because they actually ask for signups on certain days, right? They're like, we're going to broadcast matches on these days. And I don't know whether it's just because you have to sign up each time or it's too far in advance and stuff to kind of, they're trying to plan too far in advance and teams don't know if they can commit and so on. But like, it just feels as though Shoutcraft and you just seem to kind of have this one system where they're like, oh, you can come up, you can turn up and you can, sign up. But then we're going to call you out if you don't sign up, even though we're not going to do anything to like try and get you to sign up. That's what it seemed like. I'm sure they probably did do, but I just don't understand why the team like Liquid wouldn't have signed up to Shoutcraft at least multiple times. It's like, I don't know. It really kind of boggles my mind. I just really wanted to bring that up as like my final point because that's the one thing about team leagues which I just really would love anyone in the chat to kind of think of those stuff as well. I've talked to hundreds of people about this, and no one understands it. It's crazy.
All right. So, do you guys have any final words before we go on to the questions?
Just to bring this back to the fronts, we're talking about the all-kill format before. I feel like, as Chris talked about earlier, all-kill format allows teams to better give a roster that's available right now for an event. And if more people can play right now because they get to choose who's playing, that's based on who's available, more teams will be more likely to participate and thus show up properly to these events.
Which Shoutcraft Clan Wars did not do. They had Pro League format, and Total Biscuit laid out his reasoning for why. And I mean, there was definitely valid reasoning, but I wonder if that hurt attendance.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it's just a lot harder to field players, and one player doesn't show up, and then it
just throws everything off. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, guys, we're gonna move on to our Reddit questions. So this first one, we're gonna do Reddit questions and then call-ins. So if you want to call, use command call. Molded Pixels will hook you up. So, anyways, we're gonna talk about our first question, which isn't really a question. So I'm gonna read it, and then I'm gonna try to parse a question out of it. So, DJ Kaleidoscope says, not a question, just a complaint. Blizz has fucked up in many ways during the life of StarCraft 2 and continues to do so in many ways, but it can't be denied that the game would be non-memeingly dead if it wasn't for their injections of funds and sponsorships. That said, how much cash do people think Blizz can dump into the scene? Every time there's some sort of event or show or tournament where the clear problem is lack of funding, people say, why isn't Blizzard giving them, in quotes, support? Because they can't just make it rain anytime a streamer, personality, or organizer is short on cash. Motherfucker, really? Okay, so I think, despite the tone, the irreverent tone of that comment, I think there's actually something we can grab out of there, and I think, me and you, Bordy, will have a lot to say, and I'm not sure about you guys. What do you guys think, if anything, Blizzard can and should do to promote, because I think it's in their interest to promote the StarCraft scene, right? What do you think they can do, to promote the StarCraft scene short of just taking a t-shirt cannon and firing wads of $100 bills at everyone that's organizing events? Chris, if you have something to say, jump right in.
I was just gonna say, I do think Blizzard gets a lot more flack than sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong, Blizzard deserves some flack, but I mean they really are the reason that StarCraft is still in a spot it's in, because they do put so much money in. I don't know. It's the age-old question of what would you do, right? What can be done? What should be done? And if it was me, I don't know. You maybe come back to me. I was just gonna say that I think Blizzard is. I'm grateful for how much Blizzard still puts into StarCraft. It is their baby, so you wouldn't expect them to give up on it yet. But it's Blizzard puts a lot of money into StarCraft. There's no doubt about that.
So I will say, in terms of, did you have Eric? Do you have something to say? You looked like you were making.
I do.
Okay.
I feel like, and they do support to a certain extent, but these local regional lands like Cheesedelphia, Sizemore, and others, these are just not small, tiny lands. I mean, there's quite a lot of sponsorship and quite a lot of prize money involved. And what's great about at least this area of the United States we live in is a lot of people just drive to these events. Mm-hmm. I feel like if these events were put on the pedestal just a little bit more, maybe a little extra bump and nudge from Blizzard, won't take much, and probably not even any money at all. Perhaps just exposure to a certain extent. Just that right there, because there's a lot of people like yourself, like Ward, that really care about StarCraft, really care about the scene. There's a lot of really passionate people, and I feel like Blizzard just needs to find the right passionate people and you just expose them a little bit more. They don't really need to give them any money. Just give them a little more exposure, just give them a little nudge in the right direction, and then a lot of people will gravitate towards these passionate events.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point. I think it's very true, and as a streamer, even I see some of that. It's not really tournament related, but it kind of feels like the people that are in place right now in the scene are kind of what StarCraft promotes. And don't get me wrong, they do the DreamHacks and the IMs, and all your Rotterdams and all, they do great jobs and stuff like that. But it would be nice, put on the Blizzard client UI, hey, there's a Psystorm event going on this weekend, or it's going on next month, or tweet it out. It's one of those things that even I've tried to, you get like a streamer spotlight. I've tried to do that, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it doesn't even take much. All you got kind of want, even if you're Psystorm or Cheesadelphia, all you kind of want is like, hey Blizzard noticed me. They actually realize where you exist.
Like if you were I'm sorry to cut in, but if you, so these vids are already streamed and we got some pretty good viewers last time. Thanks to Base Trade as well for, I believe they hosted you, Joe?
Yeah, Base Trade and Total Biscuit. So,
yeah, so that was amazing. Now imagine if Blizzard on top of that just puts your stream link on their browser. For everyone to be like,
so
hey,
they did that.
They did.
Yeah, so I was actually gonna hop in, and I'm guessing Wardy's gonna have a decent bit to say about this too. There's been a huge shift in the last 3 months. Does that sound about right, John? There's been a huge shift in about three.
Exactly what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, for about the last 3 months, where there's been like a huge concerted effort from Blizzard to push community events, and it's not financial support, but I don't think that's necessarily the strongest ace they have to play. Cheesadelphia was featured in the launcher as a thumbnail, and it was kind of a test case. Like, that happened like 2 weeks kind of before Blizzard really kicked this whole program into gear, and it seemed like a direct result of the community summit. But this program wasn't really in gear yet, but we still got put in as like a thumbnail to kind of, like, that seemed like a taste of what was to come. And just last week, Drekken, the King of the North tournament up in Canada?
Yeah.
The qualifiers for that were the full window in the, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands, are the full window in the Battle.net launcher. Like, not a thumbnail off to the side, like the big window. And that's for a qualifier for a $4,000 land. So I think people have been saying this for years. And I think Blizzard is really responding. And, Wardy, I want to hear kind of just your experience in how things have changed. And I want to throw a big shout out to Kibbles before you go, because it seems like he's really the guy leading this charge.
Blizzard have started to do a lot better. They really have. Like, actually, the last 3 months, like, I think the last 3 months is the first time Blizzard I've ever like talked to anyone even close to being important in Blizzard, right? Because they've started to make an effort. I kind of feel it's like I just feel as though like they still could be doing more, but obviously they're slowly getting there. I just don't really feel as though they're kind of, I don't know, like, I just don't feel satisfied, maybe. I mean, I feel as though the SHITL, for example, is obviously the biggest team league right now, and obviously this is biased, and maybe I feel it should get better, but they didn't bother to talk Blizzard had done nothing about the SHITL until the grand finals. We got a tweet, which is like, that's all right. Like, I don't really care, but it makes me a little bit salty in a way. What bothers me more, I can't really talk about this, but some stuff was talked about at the summit, and I got a lot of Skype messages all of a sudden when I was on a train to Kent to travel to Valencia. I got a lot of Skype messages all of a sudden saying, "Were you actually invited to the summit?" I was like, "No," and they were just like, "Well, that's disgraceful." I don't know. I personally feel like I'm someone who's done a lot for StarCraft, and I don't try and take credit a lot of the time. Like, I get it. I'm a community streamer. I'm not the biggest. Sometimes I get fucked over, and that happens. But I really feel as though Blizzard could have done a lot more for someone like me, who's literally putting their life into StarCraft. And that's not even a thing of speech. Like, that's literally the truth. This is my life. I wake up, I do YouTube for like 2 hours and admin stuff, then I cast for 3 hours, then I go off and eat, and I come back and cast another 4 or 5 hours. StarCraft is literally my life. And I feel as though Blizzard could have done a lot more for someone who they must know is there, right? Because I know they know about my tournaments. I know they know about me. But until even like a couple of months ago, when Base Trade were like, "Hey, you should invite this guy into this special Skype call as well," Blizzard made absolutely no attempt to help me in any way, shape, or form. And I don't really hold that against them. Like, maybe I'm coming off sounding very whiny right now and like hard done by, but I feel as though if they really, I don't know. Like, I just really feel as though they could do more. And again, that's obviously a very biased opinion, And I completely understand people who just think, well, no, you're not big enough, important enough, and that's probably very true as well. But I think sometimes they could have at least talked to me a lot sooner or responded to me when I tried to talk to them. And that's not kind of, I don't know, I don't want to hate on Blizzard, and I think they get a lot more shit than they deserve. But I really do feel very hard done by for what I've put into StarCraft, and I've gotten very little kind of even a hello back often until very recently.
Yeah, and sorry.
I'm sorry, Joe. I was just gonna say I don't think that's unreasonable for you to say that. I mean, like I don't know the exact number of how much money StarCraft is putting into, or Blizzard's putting into StarCraft every year, but I gotta say it's probably what 500,000 maybe around. I don't know the exact amount, but imagine if they just said, hey, Wardy, here's $10,000 for your next season of StarCraft Team League. Like imagine how far that could go. It would be.
I mean, it's not even about money, right? Like I think
really, but like just small things like that.
I think what they already do, like they obviously put in loads of money for all the events all through the year, and they fund WCS and all of this, and that's fab. And I don't think they should come out and give me $10,000. You know, I think if I wanted that to happen, I should have approached Blizzard with like a plan and stuff, like what Rafi did for a lot of heroes, and obviously they're very willing to commit to like community tournaments. That's not something I've ever really thought about doing. But when I have reached out to Blizzard, the response has been very minimal. Like, like again, literally, all that I've ever gotten from Blizzard is like a tweet. And very more recently, they've taken more interest in events I'm streaming and stuff like that. And again, like I've not been the biggest of streamers until more recently as well. But I just don't think, with the way the StarCraft's been lately, that they've done as much as they could. Because like things like, I know it's not simple to edit. The browser has to go through hundreds of people, or like not hundreds, but a good few people, and they've got to ask for permission and double check things. I just feel they could have started doing that a long time ago. And again, like I mean, I have a lot of persistence, and I think a lot of people who would have had the chances that I had probably would have just given up, because I know at times I've wanted to give up, and I've just looked at this. I'm like, I'm literally making no money. Like about a year ago, I was like, well, I'm halfway through a year being full time. I'm making no money. No one really cares about my events. Like, we've got a very loyal fan base, and a lot of people on Reddit are like, "Yay, fucking love the Team League," and then like 20 people tune in or something.
That's
like, it's like I just feel as though Blizzard could have done something more. Like, you see the signups of the biggest Team League outside of Korea starting. Just tweet about it on at StarCraft or something. I reached out to them loads of times, and again, I didn't get any response.
I don't mean to jump in over Eric one more time, but something related here is just, I haven't done as much as you have, Wardy, but I've been streaming almost every day for the last a little bit more than 2 years now, and it is a thing where, I've never heard anything from Blizzard. Like, for all I know, they don't know I put any content into StarCraft. So, I mean, as a content creator, I mean, I love the scene, and I love, my fan base, but it's those things where it's like, look, and it's not like you're owed anything, right? Blizzard doesn't owe us anything.
No, I don't expect anything.
Right, but it's like you
don't understand why they didn't.
It's natural to want them to say, hey, thanks for doing this, or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had similar experiences to you, Wardy, where I feel I've done a lot for kind of the ecosystem, and I would say I'm even less visible than you generally, because I'm a background person for the most part. I do the adminning and the organization and all of the things that are invisible to the camera. And I think part of that, is part of the reason that I've had trouble until very recently getting a hold of Blizzard and getting things done, and like wanting to go to these things like the summit, things like that. And I've obviously just been kind of out of that, but now it feels like I've really entered into it, and it feels like they're turning over a new leaf. And only time will tell if that is like a sustained thing, or if it's maybe just an effort that kind of fizzles out. But right now it seems really promising. So I'm not gonna get.
I think the one thing that really, it's really awkward because I can't talk about it properly. But again, this thing that happened at the summit, that and people are messaging me saying well, you should have been there, and the fact they didn't ask you to be there is crazy. I think it's just that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if I could explain it to everyone, I think everyone in the chat would maybe be a bit less I think people would realize oh, I'm not just being a little whiny bitch. They'd realize it's really genuinely quite stupid. So I don't want to completely call Blizzard out. I think what they're doing is great. I just feel as though they could do so much more, especially with a game that has a thriving online community. Because look at, I actually love to say this, because you look at League and Dota and Overwatch and whatever, they have a few online cups and whatever. They have nothing compared to StarCraft 2. Online, StarCraft 2 may not have the most kind of large events throughout the year, but we have a good amount. But you try and find a day where there isn't StarCraft content going on. The other day, there was a Polish tournament going on, WESG qualifiers, Wardy Open. there's German tournaments, there's Ting events, there's so much online, Leifeng Cups, SGL Cups, there's so much online stuff. I actually think the online stuff is what has kept StarCraft alive for a long time, because a lot of players would have quit without online events, and I just feel as though that's something they really didn't appreciate at any point in their, at any point. I still feel they could maybe do a bit more.
I just want to add that you all make good points. I don't want to play devs after or anything like that, but I still remain a bit optimistic. Chris, I mean, you're seeing that Blizzard's starting to spotlight certain streamers now.
Yep.
So I feel like if you have a really solid StarCraft team, and you do, that eventually all these players will be spotlighted and get their just deserved.
I've heard. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've heard rumored that the only spotlighted streamers are people that were at the summit. So
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
took
100%
photos there.
on that, but
But
yeah,
hopefully that's not true. I hope that's not true.
not sure. That's a rumor, but that's what I've heard.
Hopefully that's not true. And Wardy, I mean, I don't think you're really appreciated as much as you should be appreciated. You put a lot of time and a lot of effort into what you do in the StarCraft scene. And I hope you do get what you do deserve, which should be a lot.
Okay, so we're going to be taking our first call-in now. I know we could probably all talk about this topic all day, but our first call-in is going to be Andrew, and he should be in any second now. Actually, we can keep going until he gets into the call.
Yeah, let's just keep ranting. What a great thing. Well, absolutely brilliant way to go.
How's your peach water, Wardy?
Look, that's good, man. Let's
It's
have
good, man? It's almost gone. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it.
Alright, well, let me shout out everyone that's... Oh, there we go. I was going to shout out everyone that's hosting us, but they can wait till the end. Hey, Andrew, can you hear us okay?
Andrew.
I'm going to go ahead and fix the overlay now. Give me a sec. Andrew, can you hear us?
You there, Andrew?
He said
Take 3
1
long
sec.
breaths.
He said 1 sec in the chat.
Oh, okay.
His microphone's on, but it's muted now. I think.
Here we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How are you?
Okay, I don't know if you guys can actually hear me or not.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can. This is awesome. I've never used
Beautiful.
this Zoom meeting thing before.
Yeah, it's great, other than me redoing these overlays on stream, which won't happen again in the future because I'm going to save this as a separate scene. Hashtag production values.
Oh wow, I just sort of like appeared in the middle there, didn't I?
You're famous.
But anyways, Andrew, you can go ahead and ask your questions while I'm fixing this.
Alrighty, I actually have a couple questions. First off, this is something that I know Wardy is going to want to rule in on. Do you think that a large part of the issues of Team League struggling is region-based? Wardy has been running the longest standing outside of Korea in terms of team leagues, and every single team league that tries to move into North America or tries to be flexible with the North American teams flops.
I mean, we're quite flexible with the North American teams that want to play, and I think pretty much every North American team that does play in my league can do so quite comfortably. Like, I think it's a bit more awkward in like second division when obviously like a lot of the teams aren't able to play through the day, but they still kind of find chance to play on the weekends. Like if it's only one match in the entire season that they have to play, that's on a weekend, then most of the European teams don't really mind, and it sort of works out. I just sort of feel as though the NA region, like when I ran an NA tournament, like literally we got to the playoffs and 3 of the teams just ceased to exist or not have it. And I mean that's not even a joke, and that literally happened. We had Root, I can't remember what the teams were, but basically Root were the only team left, and it's just like, well, that sort of sucks. But like, I don't know, I just feel as though one of the main problems about running a team league in NA is that you broadcast at NA times, and that just generally doesn't get as many viewers, and that can then be very hard to sustain as well. So that sort of sucks. I know that's one of the reasons I don't really, I mean, it's one of the reasons that I'd like to go back into NA, but it's one of the reasons I'm trying to find a way around, because it's like really tough to broadcast in NA times to like 100 viewers, when if you did the same event at EU times, you'd be like 300-400 viewers.
Now, do you think it's a term of people being too flexible? Because I know that a lot of the NA leagues where, hey, you talk to the other team, you schedule your own matches, you do everything on your own, and it sort of turns into this disorganized chaos, whereas the other ones tend to be more structured, your matches at this time.
I mean, for my leagues, for all my leagues, apart from the first division this season, which is the only time they've ever set scheduled matches, which are still like sort of flexible as well. Every match has always been very much so just you can schedule when you want and just schedule with what works with your opposing team. And I've never really had any issues, so I don't really know. Again, it sort of brings me back to the bit of the rant that I was on, where I was just like, I don't understand why so many other leagues have issues because I don't seem to have these issues. So I don't really know. Like it's one of those things. I feel as though like Dust League does pretty well. It's just they need more consistent like issues. So I don't really know. Again, it sort of brings me back to the bit of the rant that I was on, where I was just like, I don't understand why so many other leagues have issues because I don't seem to have these issues. So I don't really know. Like it's one of those things. I feel as though like Dust League pretty well. It's just
Well, I remember with SC2 CTL in the primary league, when we got to the playoffs, there had been over 25 walkovers throughout the season, and the gold and platinum league had 0. So it doesn't come down to ego and players not wanting to compete, just because there's no kickback to them in the long run. Like it's just one way for a team owner to actually make money off of the league.
Well, I don't know. Like again, like it just comes back to like I in all my divisions across any league, there's always been very good participation rates and show-up rates and so on. So it's a really hard question for me to answer because they're problems which I just don't experience myself. I don't know if ever anyone else has an opinion on it. No.
No, I think. I mean, I think kind of when you get into Europe and players are making more money, they're taking the game more seriously.
I mean, there's more serious teams in Europe, which might help. I know when you talk about like SC2 CTL, a lot of the SC2 CTL teams weren't really like professional teams, I guess, to some extent. They're very much sort of teams which are, they're not unprofessional teams, but they're not like established brands. They're just a team who has a team leader and some people. He just thought it'd be cool to run a StarCraft team, right, and stuff like that. So I think that might obviously have a bit of an impact, but again, even with those teams in Europe, we haven't really had much of an issue. But maybe it's just because there's other teams that help to like run things smoothly. There's, it's a bit better because I know there's actually sometimes in the European leagues that there's like things that happen which are like with two teams which are very unresponsive, then all of a sudden their match doesn't get played and stuff. So there's just a thing of kind of the organizers then keeping up with it. Like if they see that's not happening, fix it. If you see like a match hasn't been played this week, tell the teams like, hey, why is it not being played? And like, oh, we just didn't organize it. Then be like, well, organize it or I'm going to walk over you guys. And then they get on it. So
I think there's something else to be said where also what you have in Europe is a lot more players are full-time, and there are a lot more full-time teams over in Europe than compared to North America. In North America, we had Flipside for a while, and then now Psystorm's done a great job coming up. And we have Root. But, those are kind of the main teams. I mean, we have some other teams, like, of course, there's other teams. There's Team Ascension.
Yeah, I was going to say Team Ascension is kind of the other one I think of, and maybe
Right.
Rival.
There's more teams coming up, but there's a lot more teams you recognize and a lot more star players on Europe teams than there are North American teams. And, like, there's a lot of great North American players that aren't on North American teams. Like, Neeb's on his own team. Scarlet's not on a team. Like, should you on Acer, right? But basically, there's a lot of players kind of not, State's not on a team. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it sort of goes into my next question for you guys. We look at Korea with the GSTL. Is there a reason why we haven't tried to enact that in the other regions like Europe or North America to sort of make a more marketable, better in terms of viewership to appeal to that corporate sponsorship and create the ability to have more professional teams?
you mean with like the teams like go into like playing offline?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very simply just because it's impossible to get a bunch. Like in Korea, it's like everyone lives in the same area and everyone can transition there.
Population density.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally in Europe, it's like, where do you put as a central location in Europe that all the players can travel to on a regular basis?
Dude, America? Like Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Europe is
You
tiny
say it's
compared to America.
impossible, but look at Riot Games with League of Legends.
Yeah,
but
but
they
it's
have all
different.
that
That's
salary.
WCS.
So
That's-
that's very different. So
You're
when they have
looking
all their
at-
players salaried. It's like it just costs so much to do that, and that's why Riot have loads of money, so they can do it. If Blizzard wanted to throw literally tons of money at it, they could do it. But it's also very difficult because that's not the case right now. If they were suddenly to give salaries to every team player, like that sounds ridiculous, right? It's like they literally give salaries to every player on a team that wants to play in this league, which is just unrealistic to begin with. But then, a lot of these players are still in school and they play half time. They don't play full time. Yeah, some of them are very young. Like Reno can't just up and leave to go to Germany or something. StarCraft 2 Team League every week. It's just very unrealistic to kind of get it going in Europe. And it's always been one of the issues about kind of talking about kind of creating an offline team league. I think one of the best things to do would just to be host an offline final playoff, like Ace of Team Story Cup did. I think that's the best you're ever going to get.
Cool.
Current situation just doesn't lend itself to that sort of thing which you're talking about.
Yeah, Andrew, and I want to thank you for your question. I am going to have to move on to the next one, but does anyone have any last words they want to say to Andrew? Why do team leagues offline work in America and Europe and not in Korea? Or are we all just population density?
That backwards.
Yeah, backwards.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah, no.
But I will say as a final thought, in my mind, I think maybe it would have been possible for Blizzard to create something like an LCS in early Wings of Liberty days when we had all teams like, Quantic, Liquid, EG, and teams were creating team houses back then. I think it would have been more plausible, but especially at the state of the game right now, it wouldn't be very viable at all. And plus, like if you try to do it in North America, almost all the players I know, almost all the players are going to school, have jobs. You'd have to take them out of their own lives to put them offline. It would have to be insane money. It's just not really reasonable.
All right. Well, the next guest we have is actually Ricky. I'm not even going to say his last name, but he's the owner of Team Dust. Ricky, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I had to unmute everything. Am I good now?
Yeah, you should be good. Yeah.
Is it super loud?
No.
Beautiful.
Okay.
You're great.
That's the dank TTE Sports headset. Nice plug there. I wrote down a lot of stuff because I think the podcast was great, Joe.
Thanks. If you could keep it to like one question, just because we're actually super over time.
Oh, okay. That sucks. All right.
But yeah, no, or give it two. Give it two. I just want to make sure. I want to let Wardy go to bed. It's late for him.
Okay,
Everyone's been here for a while.
This is for Eric. Eric. Obviously, Psystorm, when it comes to like Dust League, it's been a gravy train. You guys have just like rocked it. Season 1, Season 2. Obviously, the story with Season 3 was nuts with Gravity. It was a big upset. We'll call it an upset. But since it's been like clean, smooth sailing, what do you guys do now? Does it impact your team at all? Do you recruit more players? Do you cut players? Does nothing change? Was it just shitty, or like where do you guys go from there? Because obviously you guys talked about it, and I don't think you guys have ever talked about it before because you've just been winning.
It does impact the team, and unfortunately, I have to give you a very unsexy answer. I really want to give you a sexy answer. There are things in our team that we're going to have to discuss and make decisions for the future, but unfortunately, I cannot talk about them right now.
Sure. Okay.
But you're right. Because of what occurred, we want, of course, win everything. I mean, that's our team's goal. So the question we got to ask ourselves is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to be more consistent? And we're going to get together. We already have, actually, and make decisions, or we have already made decisions of what's going to be happening with the future.
Okay. Awesome. I can only ask one question.
Yeah. If you have a second one, that was pretty quick. So if you have a second one, I'll let you follow up with that before we hang up on you.
Okay. Cool. Okay. You know what? Let's just leave it at that. I was gonna beg Wardy for a spot in Season 7, but let's just leave it at that. Obviously, thanks for the plug for Dust League. Season 4 will be starting in October.
Awesome.
That's official. Check. I'm kind of plugging it in here. If any teams that are watching want to register, it'll be on TL. It'll be posted on our social media. We just want to get right back into it. That's the goal of Dust League. We never really. I know we have problems with content. Where can you watch? But the goal of the team league was just to keep it going. I found there was a lot of downtime in between other team leagues. I think Dust has been around for 4 years, and we probably played like 8 seasons between like 5 different leagues. And it's just taken forever to get something going. So our goal is to just never stop, and we're not going anywhere. Wardy, I don't know if we can catch up to that dank prize pool, but we're gonna catch you soon, buddy. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for the podcast, guys. Thanks for having me.
Before you go, Ricky, I actually have a super quick question for you.
Okay, yeah.
So I heard some feedback on Dust League that people weren't super crazy about having the entire playoffs played in one day. Because people were like, oh, as it got later and later, our players had to leave and had stuff to do. Would you think about changing that in the future, or do you like the one-day playoffs, that crazy marathon?
I think you get to see a lot of good games. If you have nothing else to do on the Saturday, I think it's amazing. I had so much fun. But yeah, it can be an issue. Obviously, the time zones, it's a huge time zone. I mean, we started at 3 p.m. and we finished at, I think, 1 in the morning. So if you're a Korean, you're staying up all day. If you're in Europe, you're up all the time. I mean, everyone's up all day, and you're starting at weird times. So yeah, that's something to look at for season 4. But it's been 3 seasons, and it's really only been this season that everyone's kind of making it an issue. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Can I jump in here? You don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So as someone that's been there for like 12 hours for the entire event.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was a full day.
It certainly is a marathon. It kind of reminds me of MLG, like back in the day, which tickles me because I love that sort of thing. But just my 2 cents, I think players would appreciate if you cut it up somehow.
Okay.
Because, and also to let you know that my wife would also appreciate I wasn't at the computer for 12 hours at a time.
Hey man, I waited a long time for the girl as well. It was definitely a grind. But yeah,
but you do have really great content, and I love this, and I love the Dust League. But I think might possibly get better games from the players if you maybe cut it in half. If that makes sense.
I agree. I think that's great. Obviously, that's feedback we need to keep going. But yeah, I agree 100%. To be fair, we never had a day go that long. That was pretty brutal. But we had no team got like wiped off. Like it was all close. It was 4-2, 4-3s. Every clan war was pretty close. So in the previous seasons, we had like 4-0 blanks in the early leagues or early stages. So it was just a lot of great games. But yeah, we'll definitely be looking into changes to make it easier for you guys. Obviously, to get better games, because you don't want to lose a clan war because your player fell asleep on his keyboard, which happened to a few teams, mine included. But yeah, we'll look into all those changes definitely.
Awesome, man.
All right. Well, thank you for calling. Oh,
I guess something to say to you, Joe. I think this is just hypothetical, but would you ever consider, say, had a sponsor, you would think about making a team leader? Would you ever think about partnering up with something like Dust, where they're kind of already there?
that would be my ideal situation because I have almost no time.
And then you could,
Hey,
and
we
then
can
it would
use
give a
that
lot more
money.
advertisement where you could have all the Dust League streamed on your channel or something like that.
Yeah, so honestly, if someone here, sorry, word, I'm just gonna talk over you super quick. So if we were to do something, I would likely partner up with someone that was already running something and have the A stream be on our stream, and we would handle broadcasting, let an admin team handle something else, and then let anyone else stream any of the games that went unstreamed. Just because almost every minute of my day is spoken for already. And the idea of running a team league is like incredibly daunting, just because I have
insane.
almost
I gotta
no free
commend
time
Wardy
already.
on that. I gotta commend Wardy on that. You put in so much time for not only scheduling, which is, I mean, I made it easy for me. It's at the same day at the same time for 10 weeks. So
Okay, I'm just gonna straight up say I literally set up the team league, which takes about 3 days, and then it just runs itself.
it does though. It does. I agree with that. I also don't have the issue of like teams kind of not showing up. That's on them, right? Because before I was just putting up the prize pool, and then some teams just didn't show up and they messed up results and they just wouldn't be there. But now if you add like a little, you have entry fees for yours, obviously, so that it's on them to make an effort, and it's not just a freebie, and actually compete. So
What
I wonder-
would say about the joining up is I just think someone should join oh god, I know you spoiled things. Someone should just join season 7 American team league that I'm running. So if you guys want to play, I'm Bull.
Throw down.
nice.
That just-
Can I say something about Chris?
Super
Hey,
quick, but then we have to move on.
Hey Chris, I don't know you, but when you joined Flipside, I mean I know of you obviously, but when you joined Flipside, that was a huge announcement, and I'm glad that you stepped up and actually proved that you were a big asset to that team. I know it's in shambles right now, but definitely keep it up, buddy. A lot of people are looking at you, and you're doing well. Your stream's great. Your smile's amazing. It's adorable, and I hope you get where you need to go with StarCraft 2, buddy.
Appreciate the kind words, man. Take
All
it
right,
easy.
well, thanks for calling in. We're going to have our final call in, and then we'll wrap things up here. Thanks for everyone that's hung out with us. Remove. And our final caller for today is going to be Benjamin. Benjamin, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
What's up,
sir.
Benjamin?
Hello. Okay, so I want to hit on, you had mentioned very earlier in the cast about the change in the qualifier format to how it's all based on ladder now. And I was wondering what you guys thought about having a hybrid system that add both what we have now with the ladder qualifiers, so you get to see the highest level people compete for slots, and then have the contender setup the way the challenger was originally, where you could have lower ranked players that really have no prayer of getting enough MMR to actually go head to head with Pult and Hydra and the like of them, but still be able to get out there and prove I have what it takes to do this. I can actually show good games. I can maybe get picked up by another team to start being mentored, like Flipside Academy or Team Ascension or My Insanity, how they have academies to try to develop up-and-coming players, to just try to get these players in the spotlight to where other teams can be like, hey, let's pick this guy up, and they can start growing.
So, for example, instead of the top 16 be the challenger in every tournament, you have, let's say, top 32, and the bottom 16 of 32 plays the top 16 for the qualifier spots. Is that what you're suggesting?
More or less, and it's like if the lower seeded players can take games off the higher seeded players, then it's like, hey, this guy's got something.
I just want to say, like, why not just make the ladder thing an addition instead of a replacement, right? Why?
Yeah, like a last chance or a second chance qualifier after the main qualifier. I think that could be really cool.
This is very specific for Europe, because Europe has like so many slots for each event. It's like 14 for like the championships, right? So like you have 2 from Challenger, which is like ladder. So why don't you just have 2 from ladder, and then you still got 12 to give out? Why not just give like another 4 from Challenger League, and then just serve the qualifiers as well? It's just one of the things that really perplexes me, that Blizzard got rid of the old Challenger League, and I feel as though the ladder editions are great, and if you could do ladder and Challenger League as it was, that'd be even better, because there's just no reason not to, because it's just, I just don't know why they didn't want to continue.
That would be pretty sexy. I really, like you guys are saying it, and it really is appealing to me.
I mean, I think it's a good idea as well. Like, it would always be better to have something like that. I don't know. It must just be financial or something, because, I mean, the old WCS system gave a lot of money to players. You were giving a lot. You were giving $2,000 to a lot of players. That's just for Challenger. It was a lot more money in the old WCS Challenger and Premier format. So it might be financial. I don't know.
So more prize money was given out this year through WCS, but it feels like a lot of it was moved into the tournaments and away from Challenger, which
it benefited higher end players way more than it benefited like people who are up and coming.
Honestly, it benefited Europe and screwed America. I mean, it's legitimately, because like Chris was saying, so last year in 2015, you'd have, I forget how many Americans in Challenger, but it was like even though maybe only 8 Americans got into the Premier League, you'd get 16 Americans getting $2,000 apiece in Challenger. Now you have 8 Americans making it into the tournament, but there's no Challenger. So the bottom is really fallen off the floor, and I feel like that's hit America a lot harder than Europe.
It's got to be financial, because I mean, think that, like, if you could spend, like, let's say you're trying to be full-time StarCraft and you placed last in the Challenger tournament, you're getting a couple $100, you know, and that's for like 3 or 4 months, you know, if you're considering, I mean, obviously there's other tournaments, it's just not a lot of money, and I mean, there's nothing really to say that's more than, I don't know, it's like, I think it's more money situation.
Yeah, I don't think money has a lot to do with it. Like, so when you're talking about a StarCraft tournament, and I can say this from personal experience, like the prize pool versus production costs is, for Blizzard, the prize pool doesn't matter that much. They're paying DreamHack a lot more to put that tournament on than they're paying in prize pool money. Like, and if you look at kind of the prize pool has gone up for DreamHacks, but now they're being filmed on a soundstage behind the curtain, and the production values are a lot lower. And I guarantee, even though they're higher prize pool tournaments, they're a lot cheaper. And like the Challenger format, I think, or if it's financial, rather, it might be the fact that they're not doing the broadcasted Challenger from the studio where you're having admins run a tournament. You have people play ladder, and then at the end it goes in. So I don't think it's necessarily the prize money.
It wouldn't have to be like an offline event. I was thinking more along the lines of, like, there's a lot of cups that go on there, a lot of tournaments that are streamed weekly. I'm part of Proxy Tempest, and we do stuff every week for every league. But it's just to have other stuff, other opportunities for players to get in that are not already like top-level Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Or the cheesiest person since Haas.
Yeah. This was kind of. Sorry, I was gonna say, this was kind of talked about last week a little bit, I think, right, Joe? You had a conversation of how to sponsor people who were like not the top players but still good players, and I think it's just hard in general because you want to help them out, but it's like, who wants to really watch? It's hard to get an audience for someone who is not a top player.
Unless you make the stakes high, a la WCS Challenger.
Right,
Which
then
is,
like, I'm not gonna
it
play
sucks.
that season because I don't want to go above the threshold.
But like when I think of like WCS Challenger, there are names to me that never qualified, but I totally know them. Like Kaifire or Virium, like they are Siegfried. Like they played in every qualifier, you know, and they're names that I recognize even though they never broke through. But I watched them play because the stakes were high.
And you have a storyline that develops as well. Like, for instance, I hate to pick on Hostum because he's already a walking meme, but it was Year of Hostum for forever, and then he went and won Home Story Cup, and he's just started doing really well. Started showing, and then he started a little bit of a slump, but he finally did it. And it's like, because of the storyline that was there, everybody's like, it's Hostum, and they got really excited when he started getting really close.
Well, the ladder competition just promotes absolutely zero storyline because you like have like the TL thread which like updates every day with who's on top. It's not exciting to watch. It's not fun. I actually don't think anyone genuinely checks it, you know, with much interest, apart from like 2 hours before. Then you have like 10 minutes of excitement as the final games get played, and then it's just another online cup. It feels like it's like compared to like you go 2 years ago and you look at those brackets and you'll actually remember watching those games. I promise you, because
Kane beating Polt, like.
Yeah, you just like recognize like all the games. Like I didn't actually realize this until we talked about this in my talk show, and we went through the 2014 WCS Challenger brackets, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, I watched all of these games and I remember so many of them. You talked to me about Challenger League this year, and I can tell you that Neeb won the NA ones, and that's probably the only storyline I can remember.
Yeah. So Benjamin, thank you for your call.
Thanks, man.
I think that's gonna do it for us here, guys. If anyone has any final thoughts they want to add on this topic, feel free to throw them in, and then we're going to go through shout-outs and everything really quick and wrap things up.
If you don't mind, I'd like to jump in and just shout out and thank all you guys for the content you produce. Joe for putting this drop podcast together, everybody that's streaming, producing content, Woody for his consistent tournaments, consistently producing content, Chris for his every night streams, and Eric for the team league he runs. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oop, I gotta go back to. Oh God.
It happens.
I thought I had it set up so I wouldn't have to tweak this
I know
anymore.
exactly what you've just done. You need to hire someone to just jump in and just be here forever, like in the call that you just.
Yeah, I shouldn't have hung up on him. Anyways, I'll fix these now.
I mean, it looks okay for me.
Okay, so Chris, since you're the only person that looks like a person, I'll let you go ahead and start. Where can we find you on Twitch? What's going on with you? Etc. etc.
Nothing too new. I definitely feel like I don't know. I don't know if I'd say more inspired, but I've been losing a lot of my games the last couple of days, but it's weird because I'm actually feeling more motivated to become a better player recently, which is good because when you play StarCraft as much as I have, you know, I think sometimes you go through lulls where it's like, man, you know, this game's hard. And just gotta thank my community. I don't want to go too long on this, but yeah, just, you know, shout out to all my fans, obviously my team Flipside, and thanks to everyone who tunes in, and whether you never say a word in my chat or not, thanks for all who watch me and support me. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, Bordy, we've almost got you looking like a person again. So.
Are you sure? Like I've got some balls on my face right now. Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Of course, it was a lot of fun. It's much more fun being a guest than a host. So. Yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about some stuff I'm obviously very passionate about, which is team leagues, of course. Yeah, shout out to everyone who's supporting me. This month has been like literally ridiculous for me already. Like September's been a more successful month of streaming than June, July combined or something, and we're only like 10 days in or something, if that. We're like a weekend. So yeah, thank you to everyone who've had like stupid amounts of support on my stream lately and stupid amounts of views, like views I wouldn't even have imagined for my own events. So thank you to everyone who's been supporting and watching and stuff like that. And I people are gonna hate me because I keep teasing this, but I've got like ridiculously huge announcements coming in like the next month. I'm literally waiting on graphics, and then I'm gonna blow everyone's mind. So thank you and keep watching.
All right, Eric. Final thoughts. Where can people find you, follow you on Twitter, etc., etc.? Fun stuff.
Well, before the fun stuff, I want to just thank everyone for having me or allowing me to be here to talk to everyone and being on the show. I'm super passionate about StarCraft, much to probably my wife's chagrin to a certain extent. But I'm really happy to be here. You can find me when I stream End of Line TV on Twitch. And I want to give a super big shout out to my team, Sidestorm Gaming, and all my teammates and friends that I practice and play with. It's been a lot of fun, and I just managed to keep on doing it.
Nice. Thanks, Joe, for having us. It was
it's great.
fun being here with you guys.
All right, so let me tell you about what our projects are before we hang up. So we actually have a tournament called Fragadelphia this weekend. I think at least one of the streams will be on this channel. The other one will be at twitch.tv/Fragadelphia. I don't know which one will be the main stream, but that's a $15,000 Counter-Strike LAN that we're hosting at localhost. So that's super exciting. It's actually why I'm covered in spray paint. I've been spray painting our set all day today to get it ready. That's probably the biggest project. Nerds Street Gamers coming. Stay tuned. We've got Kung Fu Cup coming up on this channel. That starts at the end of September. That's a $22,000 tournament that we handle the English broadcast for. We've got a bunch of other projects coming up. We're going to be launching some Cheeseadelphia online stuff in the next month, so look for announcements for that. And I think that's all we've got. You can follow me on Twitter at NSGJoe. Follow Nerd Street Gamers on Twitter at Nerd Street Gamers. And we're going to find someone awesome to host. So if you want to watch some more StarCraft, hang around, check out their stream. And I think that's going to do it for us. So thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Thank you to all my wonderful guests, and thank you, the viewers, for being great. All right, you're not muted quite yet.
When can I have my magic card rant?
All right, you guys are muted. Thanks a lot for coming on. That was a lot of fun. See, I love that. I just felt bad about you guys. Yeah. Yeah, so that's, I tried to hard cut off at like 2.5 hours. Yeah, I agree. It's not like we were like bullshitting, you know?
Cambridge to Boston, lives in a world she's lost in, victim of compromise. He's staring at her Aberdeen heart, London eyes, Glasgow bones. She's whistling the catacombs, a paradox. He's in love with the statue in a marble block. He's in love with the girl that time forgot. She just shakes her ears. She's falling too far with salt in her scars. Won't let it taste her tears. She's falling too far. The girl that time forgot. Wasted moments, full of potential at torment. An angel in disguise, but he can see her Aberdeen heart, London eyes, Glasgow bones. She's a whistling She just shakes her ears. She's falling too far with salt in her scars. Won't let it taste her tears. She's falling too far. The girl that's I forgot. That's I forgot. The girl that's I You let her go, catacombs. You let her go, let her go, catacombs. You let her go. She just shakes her